Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Apocalypse Podcast. It is me, Taylor, your host, with my lovely brother and co-host, Kyle. Say hello, Kyle.
Yeah, hey, I'm here.
And because we're talking about the wonderful world of Magic the Gathering, we couldn't venture without our best buddy, Carver. Let's see how good of a fucking game show host that'd be. Holy shit. Yeah. Step on down to the Price is Right, Carver. Say hi.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me yet again. Very excited to talk about some Dragonstorm.
Yeah, thank you for joining us as always. And we'll cut through me trying to come up with a funny bit. We're just going to be talking now that the full set of Tarkir Dragonstorm is out. We're going to talk about the mythics because those are just the most interesting cards. And honestly, if we didn't put a limiter on it, we would just talk about the top 150 cards, which is just, we'll just talk about this for 24 hours. So we're just going to go through the mythics and just kind of go from there. I didn't know if you guys had a particular structure, but I would wanted Kyle, you to start, because I'm always curious, which, unless you want to just go top to bottom, but I thought maybe...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I figured we'll just go... Yeah, top to bottom. So
well, then why don't you start? Read the first one, and
now I will say I did open up about 6 tabs of rares that maybe I wanted to touch on if we have the time, because there's a couple rares that I read them and I was like, holy shit, that's so cool, and I would like to talk about them. But as you said, we'll just talk about this for 24 hours. Maybe we'll drag this out to a motherfucking part 3.
Yeah,
talk about the rares and get Daniel involved, or I don't know, whatever. So, anyways, yeah, we'll start with the first mythic in alphabetical order. There's 20 mythic rares for those non-Magic listeners. LOL, they don't exist, but
yeah, come on now.
We're talking about the rarity of the card being mythical. So the first one is called All Out Assault. It's an enchantment. It costs 2 colorless, 1 red, 1 white, 1 black, so 5 total mana. And it says, creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Death Touch. When this enchantment enters, if it's your main phase, there is an additional combat phase after this phase, followed by an additional main phase. When you attack next turn, when you next attack this turn, untap each creature you control. So, this card it's just like a classic extra combat sorcery spell, but with an amazing anthem effect stapled onto it with +1/+1 and Death Touch for all your creatures, which is just disgusting. Especially paired with Mobilize, the Mardu keyword this set, which is Mobilize is when you attack with a creature that has Mobilize, you create attacking tokens equal to the Mobilize cost, and then those tokens get sacrificed at the end of the turn. So it's just like a way to sort of spread out your power temporarily during combat, and then the little tokens go away after you're done attacking. So you pair that effect with, obviously, this card giving all your creatures +1/+1 and Death Touch. Suddenly those 1/1 tokens become 2/2 Death Touchers, which is just, like, honestly devastating because they kill anything.
Oh my god, I didn't think about Mobilize.
Yeah, this...
Because I was going to say, I didn't understand the Death Touch, but now I get it.
You know what's even better, I just realized too? The fact that you get an extra combat step means that the tokens won't get sacrificed yet, and your mobilized creatures will untap and attack again and create more Death Touch tokens.
And to circle back to the very first one of the first enchantments, was it Smiles at Death? Was that at the beginning of your upkeep thing, not an attack trigger, right?
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
Ignore me. All right. Because I was like, oh, doesn't that synergize? I was like, it has nothing to do with attack triggers. I'm a moron. Anyway.
But... So yeah, this card, I mean, it's just a huge, splashy, powerful kind of sorcery spell type effect, and then the enchantment stays in play and gives a crazy anthem to all of your cards. +1/+1 and Death Touch is insanely powerful, insanely strong, at all times.
It's not a do-nothing enchantment either.
Yeah, what's a normal anthem effect? Like, it's 3 mana for +1/+1. Right, generally like a glorious anthem.
Yeah,
this is staking on Death Touch as well, and the what's the original double combat effect?
I feel like those are 4 or 5 mana as freaking sorceries. Like
on their own. Yeah.
Savage Beatdown or something is the one I think is what they call it in Onslaught.
That was in Mirror. Oh, that was Onslaught? What was the one in Mirrodin where it had Entwine and did something? You could fuck, what was that one from Mirrodin? It was... You could attack with one extra... fuck, you guys know what I'm talking about? It had Entwine, and if you entwined it, then it was like a big extra combat step.
I do kind of know what you mean, but this does seem kind of crazy for this not being a spell. Like, this reads like it would be creatures you control get +1/+1 and death touch this turn, and then the second clause, and it would be a sorcery. But the fact this is an enchantment seems like is what makes it so exciting to me. I like this as a token kind of guy. I think this is a really fun way to encourage people to attack, because I think when you attack with death touch creatures, there's like this sense of I don't know, you feel like you should attack with a death touch creature, because like that you almost always are going to get a favorable trade, almost always. So like to me, this is a really good way to get people to attack and like really emphasizes mobilize as a Mardu keyword. I love things that kind of like pay off a mechanic without directly saying like, mobilized creatures are cooler. Like this just works really well with the Mardu mobilized keyword. So I think it's just designed. Like I like it more because of how good it's designed, though. It's funny how wordy that block of text is, and I wish we could just like keyword it with if it was like, like Minutemen. Like that keyword is just like this idea of like you get an extra combat step and then you untap all creatures on your second combat step. But because it reads like the way it'd be written in the comprehensive rules rather than like card reminder text because it's so clunky. But I know that it's hard to make extra turns work in a clean way. But other than that, I think it's cool as shit.
Yeah, I love this card.
It's big and strong.
We haven't even really touched on the fact you can flicker it too with white effects. This card is absolutely stupid. Like I'm
we haven't mentioned
super excited for this card. So
how about you?
Wow.
When the effect stacks and you get double death touch?
Whoa.
Well, yeah, that too.
Kills the creature that kills your opponent. No, I didn't even think about white flicker effects, although most of them are for creatures. Blue tended to do permanence. Are there white flicker effects that flicker permanence?
Well, like Felidar Guardian. Creatures? I mean, there are.
Oh my god, dude, you're so right.
There are definitely ways white does it. You know what I mean? And I think I could be wrong, but I think there's some white cards that return enchantments from your graveyard. So there's probably some way to get that to work. Just the fact it's an enters trigger to get the additional combat step, I feel like is going to be abusable in some way. That's going to be disgusting and really fun for somebody. You know what I mean? This card is. When I read this card, I was like, "Whoa!" My jaw dropped. This is one of my favorites for sure.
Wow,
I'm disappointed this isn't a cycle. They have a Mardu big enchantment and a Temur big enchantment, but they don't have a mythic enchantment for the other colors. They got spells.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Is like basically they weren't all enchantments because and it makes sense. I think for like Sultai, because their mechanical keyword wants things in the graveyards, and that almost makes more sense for it to be a spell. But I didn't realize it at first that it wasn't a full cycle in the same way.
And for the record, Savage Beating is the card you're thinking of, and it is the card I was thinking of, except it didn't come out in Mirrodin, it came out in Fifth Dawn. Or Darksteel, sorry, it came out in Darksteel, which was the Mirrodin block. And it was 5 mana instant. Play during combat, choose one. Creatures you control gain double strike until end of turn, or untap all creatures you control after this phase. There's an additional combat phase. So yeah, you entwine it and you get 2 double striking combat phases, which is insane for 7 mana. I mean, it's like
you kind of like if you don't win after that cast, like I don't know what to tell you.
That's why the card is $9. It's
so, but like on that thing, that is a 5 mana for an extra turn. Granted, it's not the same because. It's taxed because it's modal, but
yeah. The other thing is the all-out assault gives you an additional main phase, which a lot of these new effects do. Where Savage Beating is literally just another combat, so it's during combat, then you untap, attack again.
That's whenever I think of additional combat step. I never read like the step by steps. I like shortcut it in my brain to just be like, and then you attack again. But you're right that it gives you time to like. That makes this so much more broken.
I don't know truthfully though, what does the extra main phase even do?
It lets you reassess the battlefield and like what lets you like, I don't know, apply, have hold up things. Like, it lets you decide, like, depending on what if your opponent blew you out and you didn't want to attack again, like, or, maybe cast something, I don't know, activate something that you can only do as a sorcery in between the two combats. Like, they're I'd say, like, fringe applications, but they could make a big difference.
What if you...
Yeah, I guess it's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, you go.
Well, no, I was wondering if, like, what if this card's already in play, you already got your additional combat last turn, which you probably should have killed him from, but I guess maybe you could, like, attack, and then in your second main phase, Felidar Guardian. Like, I feel like there's gamesmanship with abusing that trigger, the fact they would need to give you another main phase and not just say, at the end of this combat, untap your creatures, get another combat. I don't know what I can't really think of a distinct other, and the advantage I just described is like almost negligible. I can't think of like a distinct advantage why you would want another main phase specifically. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, why do you need 3
Okay,
main
Kyle,
phases?
how about
the
this?
two combats are what's relevant, not the third main phase. But
at the start of your combat step still apply if you got an additional combat step? It would. Okay. I was trying to think of any niche things, and for me, it is only allowing you to cast sorcery level things before your second combat. Again, that's the only thing it introduces.
I think it also just makes the game state cleaner. So, like, let's say you did main phase 1 combat, then main phase 2 you played this, and it doesn't give you another main phase. Then you would go main phase 2, play all out assault, then get another combat. Then after that combat, it would be end step. So I'm thinking the extra main phase is generally just to keep the game state cleaner versus
they wrote that to match how people were playing the old cards.
Yeah.
Rather than the other way around. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting, besides obviously Savage Beating, which is a very narrow timing window. But it's kind of like how Hexproof is what more or less Mark Roseider claims is how most people were playing Shroud to begin with. They're like, well, they obviously mean my opponents because they couldn't mean me. That type of thing.
Yeah. All right. Let's go next. 10 minutes for one of our 20 cards. That puts us on pace for a 3.5 hour podcast. Let's go.
All right, we got it.
Hype.
I won't have a lot. Let me read this one because I think this one's fucking stupid.
Yes.
All right. 2 color. Is that Beator Kindaval?
Beator.
2 colorless, white, black, green. So this is the Abzan, I guess, Spirit Dragon. Each of the wedges have one. All right. It's a 5/7 flying, so it's got cool stats. It's very good for its. At the beginning of your end step. Oh boy. If your creatures you control have total toughness of 10 or greater, draw a card. Then, if creatures you control have a total toughness of 20 or greater, untap each creature you control. Then, if creatures you control have toughness 40 or greater, each opponent loses half of their life rounded up. Then, it's over finally. Sorry, this card's fine. It's just like so wordy, and also 40 toughness, 20 toughness. Yeah. Like, I don't know that toughness matters. There's some random rares that like I feel like they put in there that sure, and a lot of dragons have 4 or 5. Like, there's a lot of 3s and 4s and 5s, but like, I just feel like the 10 condition to me feels like you could have just cut it there, and I would feel like less about this card. Like, I just feel like this has got a lot going on, and it's very wordy, and a lot of math has to be involved in tracking, and I'm just not crazy about cards that like want you to track this much. So that's about all I have.
Fair.
It's probably good. I just don't love the design. Just doesn't tickle me.
Yeah, very fair.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they're saying a lot. Like it feels like it's very, it's very wordy. Like, I'm trying to think of a way that this could be.
It doesn't just seem like it, Carver. They are saying a lot. It's like 10 fucking sentences in a full paragraph. They are indeed.
They have to be able to get this down to like 4 lines, right? Am I crazy? Like, how is this? I know I'm not trying to be super, hypercritical or whatever. Although maybe I am. But yeah, it's almost more annoying to read this card. Like, do this, then it's just I don't know. It just seems really. Couldn't you just make it conditional? Like, if you have, I know, but couldn't you just make it somewhat conditional that like, if you have 10 or more toughness, do this. You have 20, do this. They're 40, do this. But like, why the way it's worded, just feels like there's extra words like somewhere in there a lot. But whatever. I mean, the card itself is kind of boring, I think, honestly. It's like kind of, I don't know. I'm sure somebody who likes their, my creatures deal damage equal to their toughness cards in EDH are going to like it, but it just feels kind of, I don't know. I'm not super stoked about it either. I'm kind of with Taylor. That's kind of like it doesn't seem like, for Spirit Dragon, this doesn't seem like thematically like this amazingly powerful card. It feels like the 40 is maybe out of reach to get that ability, and or maybe, I don't know. It just seems like a lot. 40 toughness. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. But I don't know. I'm not inspired by this card basically at all. So
yeah, so 10 toughness is super easy, right? It already is 7 toughness, so you just need basically one other creature, and you're drawing a card at the beginning of your end step. The thing I don't like is the untap at 20, because generally in Toughness Matters decks, there's a lot of walls, there's a lot of turtling up and sitting there, so untapping your creatures generally, I feel like, is a lot worse in a deck like that. So it's weird that the 20 toughness one is just untapping your creatures when they're more than likely untapped anyway, because...
So, Kyle, I don't mean to interrupt, but what is the keyword for Abzan? Do you know offhand?
Yeah, it's Endure. That's the one where you create the token equal to the Endure cost or put the counters on the creature.
So there is some built-in scaling within the faction.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think...
Yeah.
That's
for
not
sure.
that exciting.
And there's there's one of the rare sieges, there's that cycle of the siege enchantments that, like, you pick one of the two factions, and then we talked about the black-white one. It puts a +1/+1 counter on all your creatures at the beginning of the end step, so that will scale up your board pretty quickly. But yeah, like I was saying, the total toughness 21 sounds pretty underwhelming, giving your creatures pseudo vigilance. Maybe it's better because you can actually tap them to do stuff, which a lot of times, there's like that wall that taps to give you a green mana for each creature with defender you control. You'd get to untap that and then have 10 mana on your opponent's turn. It's kind of cool. I like that this gives you a way to win the game theoretically without attacking whatsoever, just putting fat asses on the board and then totaling 40 toughness and just watching your opponent's health kind of melt, deplete, cut in half turn after turn. It's kind of cool. But 40, like, this guy is 7. That means you would need to have 7 other 5 toughness creatures in play in order to hit that 40 threshold.
Yeah.
7 of 5 toughness.
Yeah.
You'd need 8 creatures in play, including your general, plus, I mean, it's just astronomical. 40 toughness is so huge. And, I guess what? Let's say you have 5 creatures in play, and they all have anywhere from 3 to 7 toughness themselves. Then you get a couple effects that put counters on things. Yeah, you could probably hit 40 toughness by turn 8, and then their life gets cut in half once. But cutting someone's life in half, they would go, let's say they were at full life.
It is each opponent, I guess. So that is not just one person. So
each opponent loses. That is true. That's a good point. But think about it. Let's say you go 40, 20, 10, 5. Actually, that is pretty fast. 2, 1, 0. Okay, yeah, that's like 5 turns, right? 40 goes
the payoff
to
is
20,
significant.
10,
it just feels weird. And it I don't know. I guess it's just, it should be exciting, but for some reason, that's it? Like, okay. Like, it just feels kind of like an enchantment that just... This doesn't feel like this big dragon that brings this effect. This feels like an enchantment payoff for a Toughness Matters build. I don't know.
Yeah. It's not an interesting effect. It's a reward for playing your deck. That's what makes it lame. Like, okay, I've played out all my walls, now I play my general, and you guys are losing half your life. The general didn't add a cool effect to play. It didn't... I mean, I guess it changes how you build the deck, because like I'm saying, you would put in a ton of defenders and big-ass dudes. Like, 2 mana 0/5s that are normally unplayable are suddenly great in this. And as we've said, the Abzan colors, white, black, green, historically have all been Toughness Matters. There's that one that the commander everyone plays. He's a 3 mana 0/5 tree folk, and he makes all
and I guess I don't
creatures
know
do damage based on their toughness. Like,
I will just cope.
Boring.
I'll cop up to my distaste for this card is because I just think Toughness Matters is not a very interesting or fun mechanic. I think it's cool when a card does it. Like, I just think that it being a recurring theme is kind of like a not interesting. So then this just being like, oh, but if you have a lot of them, you get to draw a card, untap them. Both of those effects are just like the most printed effect of all time. And the last one is really cool, but it's so astronomical that if I'm not winning in a non-commander game with 40 toughness in play,
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I don't
doing?
think them losing half their life should accelerate that.
And
'Cause
there's like
Yeah.
10 effects in these colors at this point that let you do damage based on toughness, which is how you would be building this deck anyway. So yeah, it just feels like a really, really mild reward for the way that these decks are going to be built anyway. Like the whole point is you play the fat ass creatures, as I keep calling them, and then you attack with them. And they're doing 5 damage for a 2 cost because, I don't know, whatever.
And
I don't have anything else to say.
Yeah.
It's just kind of lame.
Yeah, it's lame. And in the command zone, I want to add that in the command zone, this card, drawing 1 card a turn, if you don't get the 40, drawing 1 card a turn is like bad for a commander. Like that's not enough. You know what I mean? Like it's not a good, it wouldn't be a good general unless you're hitting that make your opponent lose their lives, or if you're actually able to attack with the toughness matters cards that you deal damage equal to your toughness and then untap them. Like, I don't know. This card is just, it's kind of a total miss for me, honestly. I know I already mentioned that, but I just wanted to reiterate that drawing one
problem.
card on an end step is just not that good. You know, they printed, what's the other Arcanius the Strategist, that the Bant one? Yeah, and that one you draw a card every defender card you play. So it's like it's just like, and that's only
the
4
effect
rolls.
itself.
And it's 4 mana.
Like,
it's so good compared to this.
And like you said, the second you play Arcades, then all of a sudden your board goes from, oh, I have 0 damage in play to I have 180 power swinging at you, right?
Yeah.
Like when you play Belt, or all you get at best is end of turn effects that make it so, oh, whoops, they were untapping this turn. Oh no, he'll have 4 cards in hand instead of 3. Oh fuck! Like it's never any kind of threat, and then yeah. To me, this feels like a card that they had a different design for, didn't have enough time to come up with something, and then just stapled like, we'll just have riders on a good body creature. Like,
he is a 5/7 flyer for 5. So the problem he poses the problem, Carver, you generally have, where like he's just going to end the game.
Yeah.
Like if you play 1 mana rock, you got a 5/7 flyer out on turn 4. I mean, that you either answer him immediately, which then makes him a lot worse because then you have to play him, as a 7-drop or a 9-drop if he gets killed again. So like you answer him immediately, or you have a 5/7 flyer putting you on a 5-turn clock, basically 6-turn clock, given whatever else they're playing. So yeah, he's just a weird card. Like, why not make him a 3/8 or like a 2/8? Actually emphasize the big
I would
butt.
love for this thing to be kind of like a pack mother, or this idea of like it's just a giant ass with a little bit of attack, just like a 1/9 or a 2/8, something that doesn't on its own get there, but any creature will get you to 10. And like,
why not just make it a 0/10?
Yeah,
what would be wrong with that?
Yeah.
That would almost that'd be really
cool.
funny. I'm a dragon with 0 power is very funny to me.
0/10 that like enables itself instantly, and
I like that idea a lot more. But it's not us to decide. You know what it is for me to decide?
Move on.
Going next.
That Carver is now going to talk about the next card in the list.
All right, yeah, let's move on. So the next card is Call the Spirit Dragons. It is 5 CMC, and its cost is 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black, red, green, so Wooburg. It is an enchantment. It says dragons you control have indestructible. So that's nice. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, for each color, put a +1/+1 counter on a dragon you control of that color. And if you put a +1/+1 counter on 5 dragons this way, you win the game. So essentially, if you have a dragon of all colors, and you end up putting 5 counters on 5 different dragons, you win the game. So it's this card is obviously a dragon tribal card, and it's probably going to be tried a lot. So I'm sure in Commander, I don't know about Standard, if this card at 5 mana, I start
unplayable.
You think it's unplayable? I start thinking about it. Like, is it possible? Because there are a lot of good.
No, it's so bad.
Okay, let me rephrase. There is a very good Omniscience combo deck. So, like, the concept of this is being playable is there, but Omniscience combo plays something faster than Call of the Dragon will win you the game. So it's kind of like, if you want to make the deck more fun, it's playable, but you will have a lower win rate because the cards that make this playable, there are better payoffs than Call of the Spirit Dragons.
That's fair. I mean, one thing I did think about when I read this card was I feel like they've had these effects before with these types of conditions, mechanized production, other type cards. And one thing I like about this one, it seems like a lot of work, but it does give your dragons indestructible. So it makes it so like, hopefully, like you can build to it and like reliably get it to trigger if you actually get to that point. And to me, it feels like having 5 different dragons, unless you're playing Tiamat or whatever in Commander, it feels like having 5 different dragons, 5 different colors seems like enough of a restriction where this doesn't feel like it's going to be annoying. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm not like overly inspired by this card or love this card, but it is an alternate win condition that I think is fair in a lot of ways, the way I read it. I don't know. What do you guys think about that aspect of it?
Go ahead,
I feel like you're just playing this card and then winning the next turn most of the time. So that's really boring to me. And maybe I'm overestimating how easy it is to get Uberg Dragon out. But here's the thing: when I read this card, it does not specify that you need to put counters on 5 different dragons. So does that mean?
I don't know. I think it does. I think the
listen. Does that mean though? Could I just have the Mardu dragon out, the Teamer dragon out, and then just bop counters on each of them 5 times and win? Why not?
Yeah, let me think about that.
Does it need to specify different, or does saying 5 dragons already inherently imply they're different?
I think, Kyle, you're correct because the way it's worded is at the beginning of your upkeep for each color. So for white, put a 1/1 counter on a dragon.
A dragon of that color.
Then you do go each color. Then it says if you put a 1/1 counter on 5 dragons, and that's true, you put the white on a dragon, blue on a dragon, red on a dragon, you win the game. So I believe you are correct. So if you had Tiamat in play, you win the game. If you have Niv Mizzet Reborn, you win the game. Based on my reading.
Oh, see, I didn't read it like that. I figured 5 dragons
Carver,
meant 5
I did too.
Separate dragons.
Yeah, but it does say 5 dragons, not 5 differently named or unique. It just says 5 dragons.
They have certainly made cards like this, and they have specified different.
Yes,
but
that's why I'm
like I said, I don't know if this is a magic wording that I'm just, they've kind of updated, and this inherently implies they're different. I'm just off, off my game. I don't know. If you put a +1/+1 counter on 5 dragons this way.
See, when I read 5 dragons, I thought the plural kind of meant.
The reason why this is confusing.
Okay, let me ask you this: why wouldn't it say if you put 5 +1/+1 counters on dragons? Like, why would it say 5 dragons? I feel like it's. I don't know. That's why. That's why I thought it was like, so you could have. Let's say you have Niv Mizzet Reborn. I thought it was, and I hope I'm not talking about something that's irrelevant, but. Like in the end, but let's say you have Niv Mizzet Reborn. I figured that would have let you put 5 +1/+1 counters on dragons, but unless you had 5 different dragons, you wouldn't be able to win the game. But maybe I'm totally off. It just
no, because maybe you're right, because it would say maybe something like if you put a +1/+1 counter on a dragon 5 times this way, you win the game, right? That's probably how I'm thinking of it. If you put a counter on a dragon 5 times.
Because, like, on 5 dragons could imply, like, it's like 5 friends, like 5 people you know. Like,
yeah, right.
But it doesn't say different.
Why wouldn't
it doesn't say different dragons. It just says 5 dragons.
Yeah, you're right.
It doesn't say.
It's ambiguous no matter what, which is frustrating.
So this is, what I was also going to say is why does it say if you put a 1/1 counter on 5 dragons this way? There's no other way for you to put them except onto dragons.
Right, true, because you put a +1/+1 counter on a dragon you control of that color. If you put +1/+1 counters on 5 I think you need 5 different dragons. The more I read this,
the more it doesn't make sense. It's too powerful otherwise.
Yeah, because it would say if you put a +1/+1 counter on a dragon 5 times, it would specify the number of times you've put a counter on a dragon. It wouldn't specify the number of dragons. If it
you know what? Interesting, Kyle. It might be because the targeting happens all at once and not pick a color. Green, this dragon. Pick a white dragon. It's okay. This dragon I'm using is to represent my green one.
Okay. So then you would, at the end of that trigger, you would say, I only put counters on 2 dragons. It would have been,
in your scenario, exactly.
Okay.
So it is just the way it within the rules. It's because we were thinking of it as individual triggers, not 5 choices happening simultaneously.
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sense.
So that makes
Resolved.
sense in the rule.
I still don't like the card.
I was going to say is I love this card for the reasons you guys think it's not good, because I love this build around. I think also I like it in the way that you could play this in a dragon tribal deck to make your onboard threats, like that last sentence, if you put 5 for 5s, you win the game. What if that's just flavor text? What if it's just you play this in a deck that has good color, like assuming Wooburg is not too tough, like this is just like an onboard, like now all these little tokens I'm playing are now unmovable clock pieces, like you are gonna die in a couple turns. So like I feel like the build around getting 5 dragons like that is just for fun. Making your dragons indestructible that scale feels really fun, and it doesn't feel like, I don't know, and I think it's cool. I just don't think it's I agree it's not very good, but I think that its power is almost not in the alternate win condition. That's almost a distraction.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a win more card. That's also why I don't like it. Because think about the win condition. You have 5 different dragons of different colors in play that are all indestructible. Like,
yeah, you already killed them.
How are you not winning already, with 5 different dragons?
Yeah.
You're winning the game. If people aren't answering your dragons and you're just amassing this board of Wooburg dragons, you've already won. You don't even need to play this card. This would probably be like, okay, instead of a 2-turn clock, you have a 1-turn clock. Answer this now. That's what it would be.
To me, as it's the reason I like it is because of the Timmy in me, not because I think what you guys are saying, this card's not going to be very good, and I agree. It is a win more card in a faction that is them on the field is already, I'm in a winning position, like they're all powerful. So
true. Something else I might add as well is that for being this crazy, pinnacle of dragon spirit enchantment, it's really, really boring.
Yeah, it
for how basic. Cool and splashy dragons are. Like this enchantment, it makes them indestructible, and then you put counters on them. That's it. That's the best you could do for a Wooburg dragon enchantment. Like, okay.
They should have the keyword counters on it if they really wanted to make it more interesting.
Yeah, like that they should have done something for each individual color. I mean, we just read a card, like, Baitor. He has 50 lines of text. Just put it on this one too. It would be more fitting.
Anyway, it sounds like we're in agreement that it's like an interesting, or it could be a more interesting effect, but it's not going to be very good. It's just, one of those for the casuals out there. We'll just very quickly
go next. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, are we talking about Crater Hoof?
Nah.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I love this card. I love that it's coming back. Nothing else to say.
I'll just read it for those who don't know. But this card is a reprint. That's why we're not talking about it. It's a classic old card. It's 8 mana, 5 colorless, and 3 green for a 5/5 haste. When it enters, creatures you control gain trample and +X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. Craterhoof Behemoth has been the #1 staple green game-ending bomb for the history of Commander. I mean, the card was originally printed. Let's find out
Restored.
Avacyn Restored, it was printed. Yeah. So, way back in...
Carver, you must have an original printing.
2012.
No, I think my first booster box I ever bought was an Avacyn Restored.
Oh my god.
So, anyway.
Whoa, nice.
That's so sick.
So, this card is it's a certified bomb. I mean, you have 5 creatures in play, and everything gets +5/+5 in trample, or in Green's case, you usually have 20 creatures in play, and then everything gets +20/+20 trample. It just ends the game. It's a reprint. It's a big, powerful card, no doubt about it. But we're just not going to talk about it because it's a boring reprint.
I'm going to go next because this is probably one of this might be my favorite card in this set.
Okay, so you're circumventing me, huh?
Yes,
okay.
I am. As the host of this episode, I could do whatever the fuck I want.
Nice.
That's how it works.
So, Craterhoof Behemoth is one of my favorite cards of all time, so I also love that it's there. All right. Death. Okay. All right. 2 things. 1, I don't have 2 things. I have 1 thing. And that 1 thing is, I love that Sultai in this set is like this like purple and green. Like the death is like mushroomy. I am obsessed with the design of the Sultai color scheme in the set and the dragons. They're all really cool looking and unique. So I just wanted to shout that because this art in Death Becomes Life is weird. 5 colorless,
yeah.
black, green, blue. So 8 mana sorcery. Destroy all creatures and enchantments. Draw a card for each permanent destroyed this way. Decree of Pain is back and better and is cool as shit. I don't know if it's actually a very good card. That is just a very powerful effect and is cool, and I love the art.
Yep. All right, going next. No, I'm just kidding. I love the art too. There is so much good art in this set. This is another thing. I guess we haven't talked so much about sort of the feel of the set, but now that all the set has been fully spoiled, it just feels like a classic Magic set, man. Back when I used to get excited during Eldrazi the sets and Shards of Alara, back when the first Dragons of Tarkir set was coming out, when Innistrad was coming out for the first time, like just the excitement you got of old, good, flavorful sets coming out has been lost, desperately lost for the last about 10 years in Magic for me. Every set that comes and goes, it's like, oh, a new set came out. What the fuck? Oh, it's the race car set. Cool. Oh, it's the Cowboys and Indians set. Good God. Great. Thank you. Like, I just couldn't care less. But this set finally feels like a return to fucking Magic. And yes, I'm an old head Magic player. I have those feelings.
And
tough shit.
Kyle,
sorry, you guys want your SpongeBob fucking cards, but I don't.
You know what's crazy though is that I love a lot of the like crossover stuff in that. Like, it doesn't bother me the way it does other people, and I feel the exact same way about the modern state of in-universe Magic. And that's
a better way to put it. Like, I truly loved the Warhammer set. I thought they did an unbelievably good job integrating
and
it
even
into
the
Magic
Fallout one to a lesser extent, but
yeah,
that Warhammer
was
one
solid
is
too.
So good. It also made it so that like the space part was the one I was worried about. I was like, what? This is Warhammer 40K, I guess, is uniquely like
that's why it's
setting.
so cool. Yeah, because it's like medieval sci-fi. It's still sword and board. They have guns and stuff, but it's still like big armor-clad wearing knights killing
with
stuff.
Orcs,
Like, it's cool. So, anyways. Death Begets Life, card we're talking about here. Decree of Pain is also 8 mana, right? 6 colorless, 2 black?
I think so. It's 8 or 7. I can't quite remember, but
I think it's 8 because I can see the 6 in my
I'll
head,
look
which
it
is
up
weirdly
while you're
specific.
about it.
But yeah, it's 8 mana, destroy all creatures, draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. It's really good. This it's the same cost. They just changed one of the colorless to green or blue. Well, I guess to whatever. It's the same cost, but now you get to draw a card and destroy all enchantments. It's just a super level up for Decree of Pain. Unless, of course, you're in a mono black deck, then you can't play Death Begets Life or whatever.
Yeah, it is.
It's a bad comparison, I guess.
8 mana, you were correct. 6 colorless, 2 black. You lose the cycling mode, which was also kind of cool, but that's I don't know if it's strictly better because like having 2 more colors
is way different. Yeah.
But it also being an 8 mana spell, getting 3 of them to be one of those 3 colors is probably not too bad. But I still don't know how good it can be. An 8 mana board wipe is like, what are we talking here? 8 mana.
If it destroying enchantments is significant. It's extremely
and this
relevant.
Set, I mean, like how the enchantments in this set seem powerful too. In particular, so
Decree of Pain is already famous for board wiping 15 creatures and drawing half of your deck into your hand. So throw on enchantments to that too, and
I will say again, Sultai's thing is it's not Delve. Is this the Harmonize, the one that's the flashback and you can tap creatures?
I thought that was the
That's Teamer. Sultai is Renew. You can exile the card from your graveyard and do an effect.
Oh, okay. So getting cards into your graveyard is beneficial.
It's good. Yeah. It's
so
going to synergize with
drawing
Renew.
too much can be a benefit. Where it's in Decree of Pain's case, it was maybe not so much, but I don't have much to say. I just love the simplicity and like that. Just reading that and you just like thinking about, oh my god, this is a little mini nuke you have, and card advantage. Like there's nothing quite like a 12 for 1 to really demoralize your opponent.
Yeah, well, more than that, because you're going to draw cards equals everything you
And
destroy, too.
how much
this is
of,
going to be
like-
like a 20 for 1 minimum
Yeah.
every
There's
time.
a lot of removal in this format that is creature and enchantment, like prison effects. So I even think about, like, this doesn't necessarily mean you have an empty board afterwards against a lot of opponents. So
Oh, sure. If they're exiling your stuff with that 3-mana common Oblivion Ring effect, that type of thing.
yeah, and there's
Yeah.
always some, and there's like massive lockdown, temporal lockdown. I can't forget what it is, but there's a lot of a lockdown. Prison, 3-mana enchantments removed from game. A lot of Oblivion Ring effects is kind of crazy, and there's a lot of creatures with it in standard right now too. One in Bloomburrow.
Yeah, this will be interesting to see if it makes a splash in standard and Commander.
I imagine it's got to go.
Nobody.
In a
Oh,
lot of
it's,
99s.
it's amazing in Commander.
Yes, but nobody cares about the O-ring stuff. Is what my point is. I guess it's like this isn't going to be getting your stuff back. People don't really play those effects in EDH.
Yeah, but
you
you're
have,
also hitting
Path to
2
Exile
more
and Swords.
players. Like, you're going to draw.
Oh yeah, it's going to be disgusting.
It might as well just say 2 to your deck for the 7 cards you want into your hand
Yeah.
at this point. But so
Yeah.
that's all I got for this bad boy. Anyone
Nice.
else have anything to say?
No.
Nope.
All right,
But
Kyle,
I guess
you get.
as long as we're picking cards we want to talk about. No, I'm just kidding. I'll go with this one, even though I don't care about this card at all. But I'll read it anyway. It's called Dracogenesis. It is an 8-mana enchantment, 6 colorless, double red. You may cast dragon spells without paying their mana costs. Very simple sentence. They had a card like this for zombies called Storm Top Rooftop.
Yep.
What is it?
I think you're
Storm
right.
top, rooftop, fuck top.
Yeah. Fuck my ass in the top of the rooftop storm. Yeah, it's the same thing. That one was a 6-mana enchantment, but blue, and you can cast zombies for free. This is the same thing, but for dragons. It's a little bit more expensive because dragons are historically more powerful than zombies. But yeah, just a crazy effect that, again, kind of like that other Wooburg enchantment we were talking about. It feels win more, or maybe this is... No, it doesn't feel win more. This might be how you win the game. Like, you hold on to some dragons, maybe play 1 or 2 to bait out some removal, and then you slam Dracogenesis turn 8, dump 5 dragons out of your hand, and, like, just win the game right then and there. This card's way more explosive and fun than the Wooburg dragon enchantment we just read.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, casting one of the most historically powerful creature archetypes in the game for free is just bonkers. Like, yeah, this card is just stupidly strong. Don't know how it'll play in standard, a smaller, a shorter game format. Probably won't see play at all, but in EDH, this is going to be a staple forever.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I think it's pronounced Dracongenesis, by the way.
Thank you.
I feel
Dracogenesis.
I feel like I don't know about standard for sure. 8 mana is just so much, but I will say just this into Stormscale Scion, or like this into one other dragon, and then Stormscale Scion. I feel like there's something there. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's not that far off of being like in the realm of possibility. Of course, 8.
Oh, that's actually hilarious. Yeah.
Just because, you just get to fuel the Stormscale Scion storm count with this card. And then you have, like you said, it's way more interesting than the Call of the Spirit Dragons, because then you have this immense board state of dragons. Your opponent has 1 turn to do something about it. I don't know. I know we kind of mentioned that with Stormscale Scion in general, but yeah, I like the explosiveness of this card. Very cool. Don't have much experience with the zombie one, but dragons being such a more powerful creature type, this card is just way more exciting than any of the other ones I've seen that are tribal like this. Is there any other ones besides zombies now? Probably not, but
no, these are the only 2.
Yeah, but yeah, this card's pretty cool. It is crazy, but crazy high in cost, but yeah, definitely someone's gonna have some fun with this. You know what I mean, for sure, which is cool.
Rooftop Storm. That's the one.
There you go.
That's what it's called. And weirdly, it's worded differently. It says you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for zombie creature spells you cast.
Huh.
It's like, it's quite a different wording, but it has an almost identical effect. This one is you can cast dragon spells without paying their mana cost. And
So does this get around
0.
increases on mana cost effects where the zombie one wouldn't, or is it because it's a replacement effect? It doesn't get modified by cost increases.
I don't know.
I would think...
Yeah, like cards that say your non-creature spells cost 1 more. Like, I think Rooftop Zombie would still make it cost 0?
Yes.
Would this one too?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, that might be the only difference, is one would get affected and the other didn't. I was going to say anything that makes Changeling more powerful always makes me happy, but then I did not realize there was a zombie one. So this is technically a worse Storm top generation.
I already forgot what it was called.
Infinite storms on the roof.
Rooftop Storm, I think.
Stormy rooftop.
Yeah, Rooftop Storm. It's actually a really unfitting name for zombies, I guess. It's like Frankenstein-esque, where you got the storm and it's summoning your zombies, but whatever.
Well, in Innistrad, zombies in blue were represented by science rather than by necromancy, so it does make sense, you fucking idiot. Yeah. Know your facts next time. I think this is a joke card that they didn't really print it and really aren't worried about it in any format. This is just for fun. This is going in theme decks, and some games you'll go against it and you will be completely dominated by it because you just are like, all right, I guess you win. I didn't have an answer to your 8 mana play, 15 mana worth of dragons. And there's a lot of dragons that you print like that when they enter, they draw a card and create treasures and search for this and raise dead, that like you could get an infinite number of follow-ups to this that like, that's what makes this one more interesting to me than the zombie ones. That dragons just are all 5 colors in such interesting ways. Go all the way back to like the invasion block, those dragons when they attack. And so it's like, this card to me is so much, it's going to be way more interesting than the zombie one. Don't think it's good, but I don't think anyone can really convince anybody that it can be good in anything but degenerate ways, especially with dragons with Storm. That's kind of nutty. I think this will break something somewhere, if not today, eventually. But who knows how long that'll be.
Kyle, do you still have Rooftop Storm open? Because one thing I just thought about this card, it doesn't specify that you cast it from your hand. It just says you can cast them without paying their mana. Does Rooftop Storm specify that? It's not.
The only thing it specifies is zombie creature spells, where this one says dragon spells.
So like your nameless.
Maybe if there's a tribal card or whatever they're called.
Your nameless inversions are free.
Kindred.
Yes, exactly. Kindred. Yes, Kindred.
Yeah, that's interesting. But again, it gets around commander attacks. I just didn't know if another way to separate it. Again, it's busted. It's fun.
Yeah. All right, go next. Carver, read this big guy.
Cool. Next card.
I just want to let you know that I told Kyle to say that telepathically. He didn't come up with that idea on his own.
to move on to the next card.
Yes. Yeah, I told him to do
Thank you, Taylor.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, got you.
Next up is Dragonback Assault. It is a 6 CMC, 3 generic mana, 1 green, 1 blue, 1 red enchantment. When this enchantment enters, it deals 3 damage to each creature and each planeswalker, and then it has a landfall trigger that says whenever a land you control enters, create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. So I'm actually a little... for 6 mana, this card, of course the landfall trigger seems really good, but I feel like the ETB trigger is maybe, like for 6 mana, is not that great. I don't know. This card seems like it's pretty good overall, but I don't have a ton to say about it because I'm just a little underwhelmed by it overall. 6 mana, and then next turn you play a bunch of lands and you make a bunch of dragons. I mean, that seems pretty good, but I just don't know how good the board sweeping aspect of it is because it's only 3 damage.
Are you sure this spell isn't 7 mana and it says deal 3 damage to each creature and planeswalker and enter the battlefield with a 4/4 token in play? AKA, I don't think you ever play this on 6. Is the bit. I think the other reason I think that it's 3 specifically is that it's anything that the dragons don't burn to death, they can beat in combat. So that is where I think that the idea is like any threat that's left, the dragons more or less should be overtaking it by sheer numbers. Eventually having how many opponents can really handle a 4/4 dragon every turn? By the way, I think this card's insane. I am so excited for this thing. This is like my teamer that has lots of ways to replay lands and cares about land triggers. I think this landfall ability is so insane. I think the fact it's not a legendary enchantment, that landfall trigger is incredibly deceptive. Just create 4/4s randomly when you do things like play lands. Like, I don't know. I've played enough Zendikar to just...
So the thing with this is dealing 3 damage, the mini board wipe thing, like even if that line of text didn't exist, how does this card look, right? Just as a 6 mana landfall making 4/4 dragons in Teamer, where their whole thing is, doing land stuff. And if you have any kind of fetch lands, even classic ones like Terramorphic Expanse or Evolving Wilds, you get 2 dragons for 1 land drop. And green has a ton of ways to play extra lands. There's no way this wouldn't have made it into your Omnath deck, Carver, right? Like this thing would have been bonkers as hell in Omnath.
Yeah, definitely. No, it definitely would have been straight amazing in that deck for sure.
But it reminds me maybe of a worse version of Sigil of the Empty Throne, which is a 5 mana white enchantment, and it says when you cast an enchantment spell, you create a 4/4 flying angel. That card
This is worse than that, do you think?
Yeah, because lands are so much more limiting.
You're right. No, that's fair. That's fair.
Especially in Enchantress decks, where every time you cast an enchantment, you draw a card. Like any kind of Enchantress effect with Sigil of the Empty Throne, it's just never-ending fuel. You're creating 2, 3, 4, 5 angels a turn. This, you'd have to have well, I guess it's the same stipulation, a card that lets you play extra lands, but even if you can play 2 lands a turn, and you're lucky to play 2 fetch lands, I don't know. I think this just, to me, compares pretty unfavorably to Sigil of the Empty Throne, if we're talking about decks that do their thing, right? Like a white enchantment in an enchantment-based deck versus this Teamer enchantment in a landfall-based deck, that white enchantment is just going to be better.
I mean, you aren't playing an Enchantress deck in a white deck, so like it's not as like...
What do you mean? Green-white is the Enchantress colors.
Well, that's my point. That's a 2-color deck. That's not a white. Like, I don't... What I'm saying is, what would a dragon deck be weak to creature-wise? It would be decks that go wide. So this thing is built to counter the one weakness that your deck should have. And
yeah, it's like a fun, flavorful, splashy effect, and...
I guess I'm really shocked the idea that just a landfall, create a 4/4 flying token, isn't like... You're saying like... a 5-mana enchantment, you have to cast an enchantment spell, is just so objectively more powerful. I see them as like, situationally one is going to be better than the other. Neither one is a clear-cut better one. I'm surprised you're saying how much more favorably the other card is in comparison.
Yeah, I agree with you, Taylor. I think green is probably just about as good as getting extra land drop. Maybe extra land drop's a little harder than white is to just play more enchantments, but I feel like, I don't know. It's probably I don't think they're that far apart. Sigil and this card, Dragonback Assault. I don't know. I guess
that's true.
I don't know what I'm thinking exactly when I read this card, and I'm not like super excited about it. Maybe it's, I don't know. I liked your initial point, Taylor, that like this does kind of. And again, one of my downfalls is I'm never thinking about standard. I'm always thinking about EDH because it's what I play more. But like maybe in standard, this is exactly what you say. Like 6 mana, it's a lot of mana, but you get there, you wipe the board of all the things my dragons can't handle, and if you do it on the turn where you would still be able to play a land drop, whether that's whatever turn that ends up being, if you accelerate it or whatever, you get to make a 4/4 right after that. That seems like that would be pretty good. And then every turn after, your opponent is just dealing with more and more dragons. Just feels like a pretty fun win condition for standard. For some reason in Commander, I'm like half bored by this card because it makes flyers. Just hate it. Like I feel like it's the dragon thing is for Commanders, like when you're making constant streams of flyers, is just gonna, okay, cool. You win the game because you played this card. Like can we move on to the next one? I don't know.
I'm sorry. Did you say flying? The keyword is this oppressive thing in EDH. Is that the story?
We probably could have a larger discussion outside of spoilers with this in a podcast, because I have found this. Maybe I don't know if I'm the only person ever beating this drum. I just find that so often when I play a commander game where somebody's playing like an Elder Dragon as their commander, the rest of their deck is like, yeah, maybe it does things and maybe there's a theme. And I'm not saying it's totally irrelevant, but so often I find that the commander damage ends up becoming way more relevant. And I don't know, like I just don't feel like that's a very fun way to lose the game in that way. Like it's different if your opponent like puts a bunch of stuff on one guy, puts a bunch of work into maybe even their commander.
It feels worse when it's an incidental win of flying damage versus a combat damage built commander that is like you're going all in on this dude is going to get and hit you for like 50 damage or 20 damage or whatever in one strike versus it's a big dragon, it's just going to hit you over time gradually because you don't have that many flying creatures, let alone flying creatures that can block this thing.
I mean, I guess this is a difference in strategy, but like I watched, so one commander game I had, okay, we're getting off a tangent here. One commander game I watched happen was a guy played the Necrobloom, which is like this landfall, make a bunch of zombies guy, basically Field of the Dead on a creature, an Abzan general.
Yeah,
anyway,
it makes a plant, and then if you have too many or enough lands, it's a zombie instead.
Yes, and so he was playing against a Teneb deck. That's another Abzan deck. That's just an Elder Dragon with a 6/6, and eventually got to the point where he just like couldn't beat the Teneb deck killed him, even though he like to me had the more cohesive deck, the Necrobloom player that was like doing the more synergistic cool thing. But this Teneb deck just won because it had commander advantage. It just felt like in that way, it just felt kind of. Now, okay, that's in the command zone specifically, but this card, just the fact it's so abusable, I feel like I just have a distaste for the fact that, like, just slowly you're going to build this big thing of dragons that it's just going to feel so inevitable, and I'd almost rather somebody just, like, play the Storm Scion, make a bunch of them, and kill me. I don't know, maybe it's just a flavor thing for me, and I'm just a person who's salty.
Yeah,
I probably sound like such a salty person right now, but it's
no. I think flying is just a deceptively powerful keyword. I just went through kind of mentally all of my EDH decks, and I can confidently say one deck can make flyers, and that's my Teysa deck, and because it just makes 1/1 flying spirits all the time. So, like best case scenario, I could probably chump block these flyers. And then Teysa could do her sack shenanigans and kill them some other way. But yeah, I mean, if somebody played this against any of my decks and they landfall just 2 or 3 times, I'd probably die. It's really... And it's not because, like you, I'm anti-flyer or anything. It's just so many of the fun, flavorful, splashy cards are just big, beefy dudes on the ground. And flying, it's a deceptively evasive... I mean, maybe it's not even deceptive. It's literally flying, but... It almost feels like it says unblockable a lot of the time. So a card I'm thinking in my head this compares to the most now, rather than Sigil of the Empty Throne, is actually Rampaging Baloths, of course. Rampaging Baloths is a 6-mana 6/6 trample, and then he has landfall, create a 4/4 beast with trample. Or no, they don't even have trample. They're just beasts.
Yeah, they're just beasts. Yep.
Right? So that Rampaging Baloth creating vanilla 4/4s almost always ends the game. Especially on the back of something, like Avenger of Zendikar or the 4-mana spell that returns all the lands from your graveyard to play, in like a Gitrog deck. You play Baloth, and the next turn you play Reclamation something. Forget the name of it.
Not Splendid Reclamation, or is it that?
Is that yeah, I think that is Splendid Reclamation. You return all lands from your graveyard to play. So, yeah, Ryan has won. You play Rampaging Baloth, kill it now, or I'm going to play not Reclamation Sage, I just forgot the name.
Yeah.
Splendid Reclamation. And make, 8 4/4 beasts next turn. That's the same thing with this, but this is just going to be so much harder to deal with because they're flying. Yeah, that's the whole point. And Rampaging Baloth is a creature, a lot easier to kill than an enchantment.
I don't
know. They're both very similar cards. They usually both end the game anyway, out of inevitability. This one will just do it a little bit faster, so maybe that's not that big of a deal.
I don't know.
I just know, Carver, you specifically have made no less than 3 decks where you have a big flying general, and you end up scrapping the deck because your big flying fat general just wins every game instead of the deck actually doing cool stuff. Because it's like, yeah, if you can't deal with the command zone 5-power flyer, like it will just kill you from inevitability almost every single time.
Yeah, that's been my experience, and that's like why I have this prejudice.
It's just boring.
Yeah, it's why I have this prejudice. Like I built my deck to do the fun thing, but then my intet is just the thing actually murdering you. So it always feels like that, I guess. Which maybe that's a sign of a bad deck maker, or I don't know. Maybe there's a a better way to make it.
Yeah, maybe we don't play enough removal.
know.
We need more board wipes. I don't know. But
in a vacuum, this
I'm not
card
as-
is
as-
very strong, and it is very
Yes,
cool.
extreme.
Like, it's just, I have this stupid prejudice, and I'm bringing down the group, so I feel bad now thinking about it. But it's
No, I was about to say I understand what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree because just talking through comparing this to Rampaging Baloth. Rampaging Baloth is one of those cards too where you see it and you're like, oh fuck, like I have to kill this or I'm dead really fast. This card would be the same way, so it's no different. And I mean that in a good way. They're just big, strong cards that kind of end the game, and they do flavorful, fun stuff with the landfall. I like that this set, again, they brought back the landfall keyword one time on this card. They brought back Storm for one card, Storm Scale Scion. Like, I love that they just added these tiny little drops of flavor just for fun. And I do really appreciate that we have this Teamer landfall enchantment. That's really cool. This thing would have been unbelievably strong. There I am using the word unbelievable again. I realize I use that word all the time.
It's unbelievable.
And I smack my lips as well. Unbelievable into the mouth smack. That's a fucking classic Kyle right there. Almost smacked my lips again. I had to stop myself. So yeah, good enchantment. Me done talk.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I could get you guys down the philosophy rabbit hole about the theory of deck building.
Yes.
Based around me just saying, like, dude, I love little dragon tokens. They're really cool.
Yeah.
This is the type of Magic I like to play is big, powerful enchantment that lets you start snowballing in a way that your opponent like just can't really. Like, they need to do something. They can't just answer your individual threats anymore. And
and to be fair... Go ahead, sorry.
And it just, like, it feels like this is one of those really powerful engine pieces, and it's just, it tickles my Timmy brain, even though I know that it probably is a little underwhelming, but I've actually, like, the more I think about it, I actually love, like, how the thing it does in particular is awesome, that it, like, kills, like, kind of the most planeswalkers that enter play, like, do the thing to protect themselves. It's like, well, and then they clear you all out, and it's just like, I don't know. In most spots, you'd be surprised, and I play a lot of 60 cards, so that's why this one in particular feels so, like, perfectly. And it does feel kind of tuned for a 60 card format.
One thing I will say, imagine having two of these.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the thing
they're
is,
not legendary. Yeah.
I have learned the landfall stacking is something that you just feel so exponentially powerful in these decks, especially once you then consider, can you make more than one land drop a turn? You know, you committing basically nothing to the board, create 4/4/4s is just nuts.
Yeah, like an easy line I could see is you play this on turn 6 with no extra land drop to clear the board. Next turn, play another one, clear the board. They just repopulated with their new stuff. Play a land, make 2 4/4s. I feel like that.
Yeah, exactly. And then
Gross.
cast cards after. Like it's just like you don't have to commit. That's what something I think is really cool in 60 card formats is you need to deploy the correct amount of pressure, and it's EDH obviously to a different extent, to get your opponent to respond to you. And these landfall decks let you apply pressure without committing any resources to your game. So it's like, okay, I'll play just a land a turn and I'll make 2 4/4s. Isn't that enough threat that you have to start spending your board wipe cards? Oh, I see you just played 2 board wipes in a row. Now I'll play my actual big end game threat. Like, that's what I love about these types of cards, is it just lets you kind of play with your food a little bit, of just being able to apply just so much pressure without actually attributing a single card. And then if they kill your enchantment, you've probably already at least got a 1-for-1, if not more than that. So
That's
why
one final thing about this
go.
card. Also, how many times have they made a board wipe that also was a win condition? Like is that, like, maybe that's not a very common. I don't know if it's
that's pretty new for this.
so.
And it's crazy
New territory
flavorful
is
for
what I'm
dragons
saying.
specifically too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is, right? Like, you're correct, very new territory. An enchantment board wipe that is also a win condition is pretty cool. But I love the flavor of this card of dealing 3 damage to everything on the ground, right? Like the fire of the dragons comes in and scorches everything, and then the landfalling dragons come in afterwards. Like they're breathing the fire forward, killing everything, then the Dragonstorm shows up and they all come flying in, like flavorfully. It tickles the like little nerd in me that likes fantasy stuff. It's pretty cool.
It's a fantasy, us getting a podcast done in under 4 hours,
Yep.
because we're at 1 hour and discussed
I know.
only 5 cards. So it's
Yeah.
20 minutes on average. So I'm going to speed us up a little bit.
That's what I was just thinking. And that you're welcome. I sent that telepathically to you because I was thinking it before you said it. So
Okay, nice trying to steal my bit.
counter telepathy.
Now we'll talk about a Planeswalker. Woo! 5 mana for Elspeth Storm Slayer. 3 colorless, 2 white, 5 starting loyalty. Static ability of you have if one or more tokens would enter under your control, twice that many enter instead. +1,
Yep.
create a 1/1. So, and with her static, that's +1, create 2 1/1s. 0, a loyalty ability. Put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain flying until your next turn. Oh, not until end of your turn. Wow,
Yeah.
okay. And -3, which she can do on... Wow, that's okay. -3, destroy target creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater. This seems really strong, right? Am I...
It is wildly
Very,
powerful.
very good.
Disgustingly strong.
I remember reading both the Planeswalkers and being like, well, one of these is really powerful and the other one's just a Planeswalker. But this one is surprisingly, like, each effect, I was like, each one of these things and the static are all, like, really good. Especially in the Mobilize set. Wow. I think these abilities are fun. The fact that the tokens gain, or creatures gain flying until your next turn.
Yeah.
Destroy a creature with mana value
Yeah,
3 or greater? Jeez, okay.
She's really crazy. So anytime you see the sentence, if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice as many of those are created instead, that instantly makes the card stupidly strong, a forever $50 card. Compare this to Anointed Procession, the 4 mana enchantment that like originally started that double token thing. That's a $60 card, and it's been reprinted twice. No, I guess only one. No, it actually hasn't been reprinted. That's why
it went from reprinting twice to it hasn't been reprinted.
Well, because there's like fucking 5 different pictures, but one's for promo, one is for the list, which I don't know how you even get those cards, and the other one's a secret layer. So I just quickly glanced at the list.
Fair. There's no official reprints for it.
Yeah, no official reprints. Anyways. This is not an enchantment. It can be killed with creatures attacking, which makes it way more vulnerable than an enchantment. However, she protects herself with 2 tokens on a +1, putting her up to 6 loyalty, which is very strong.
I didn't really appreciate of like her protecting self puts her to 6. Isn't that why Oko was so tough?
Yeah, exactly. Well, he was also a 3-drop, not a 5-drop. But
that's
Elspeth could literally have her static ability and her +1, and she would be crazy strong. So the other 2 are just gravy on top. Like, if you play her after already going crazy and creating a million tokens, then you just put counters on everything, fly everything, probably swing in the air and win right there, because, as we just discussed, flying is crazy strong. Yeah, she's stupidly versatile. Play her, destroy their biggest threat, and then play some other shit that makes tokens and doubles all of them. I mean,
the fact that I love that
good.
This card is in the set that has lots of dragons, so her 0 ability and -3 are more relevant than just the generally speaking, oh, it's good to have these effects. Like, almost every creature in this set is 3 or greater, and they almost all have flying. So I think that's really cool for this. The time in which she printed matters. Because this isolated from that, or those abilities are still great, but I think in the set that she's in it makes even more sense.
Yeah, card's great.
So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, a card with a lot of abilities, but not much to say because it's just all really strong and cohesive. She's just a classic, extremely strong planeswalker.
She's cool.
One thing I think that's interesting about this card, comparing it to Elspeth Sun's Champion, that card had a -7 ultimate to give your creatures +2/+2 and flying, get an emblem for that. This card, that's a 6 mana planeswalker that you can only do that the 3rd turn after you play it.
As an ultimate.
After you plus it, yeah. This card for 5 mana you can, for 0, put a +1/+1 counter on each of your creatures. So kind of similar to an emblem. Not really, but kind of. And then they gain flying. It just seems like, I don't know, this card just like amped up what that old stupid Theros Planeswalker was doing. Took it to the next level.
Look, she is an angel now, so she's just playing on a different level of power now. Clearly, she's not just a general anymore.
I really like her art too, honestly. She just looks like a big badass angel. Storm Slayer is such a good name.
I think Elspeth is the only character from the new era of Magic that I see and I'm like, oh hell, like I love seeing Elspeth cards.
Yeah. I was so glad when Gideon died in the lore, which I don't even know when it happened. But when they stopped making his cards, I was like, thank fucking God. I was so sick of that idiot.
I think,
and his cards were always the same. He always turned himself into a creature. It was so boring.
Yeah. And see, Elspeth always makes dudes, and I love dudes.
She does make tokens, but yeah, like that's fun. I don't know. Anyways.
And there's a lot more you can do with token generation, so let's not keep talking about individual cards.
I'm gonna go.
Elspeth is fun. Yeah,
she's really, really good. Going next, Jeskai Revelation. 4 colorless, 1 blue, 1 red, 1 white, so 7 total cost. Instant. Return target spell or permanent to its owner's hand. Jeskai Revelation deals 4 damage to any target. Create 2 1/1 monk creature tokens with prowess. Draw 2 cards. I'm not done yet. You gain 4 life.
Did you say Jeskai Ultimatum 2?
Yeah.
Like the sequel to it?
When I saw this card, I was excited that they were going to have a revelation cycle, which would have been really dope, but they disappointed me and didn't.
Yeah, it's like this is the mythic all-out assault. This is the Jeskai mythic payoff.
Which I just wish they did an actual site, like how cool would it have been to have a Sultai Revelation, Mardu Revelation, a revelation cycle would have been dope. But anyways, yeah, I mean, holy cow, that card does so much shit. I need to read it again. Return target spell or permanent to its owner's hand, so 7 mana Remand, if you want it to be. But it also deals 4, you gain 4, you create 2 prowess creatures, and you draw 2.
And
it's just so much.
Yeah. Unless you said and gain 4, you may have said that. I don't know.
Let's think, best case scenario, I said deal 4, gain 4. I kind of combined them.
I see.
You bounce their bigger threat, kill the 4 toughness smaller threat, you create 2 tokens to have an offense next turn or beginning of your turn, you draw 2 cards and then gain 4 life. Like
also,
that's just so much happening.
It's better than deal 4, gain 4 in that they're separate lines of text. So you don't have to deal 4 to gain 4 life.
Yeah, well, it also deals 4 to any target, so you can just blast them in the face anyway.
Oh, true. But even if something happens to their creature before the spell resolves, I just know there's sometimes when they're baked together as one clause, you can lose life gain. At least this guarantees 4 life no matter.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, this card just does a ton. I think it's good. I know I shouldn't be questioning that, but it is 7 mana, so it is really expensive.
It is funny to me that this just feels like they took 4 or 5 spells and literally just smushed them. Even the art is like all the spells spiraling into one spell. That's how I'm imagining it. I just love cards that just are like a 7 for 1 and your opponent's just like, I don't even know how to play around this. Like, what do I do? I like this a lot more than spell slinging. I love the big bomby spells. That's what I loved. I know people hate the new revisits, the 3 colors when they did it in the Harry Potter set. But I loved that they had Jeskai or blue-red be the big spells archetype instead of a lot of small ones. And so anything like this, I think is really.
Yeah, this card is so cool. It's I feel like it's actually right costed at 7 mana. I feel like this is like it's a lot, but it's a lot of mana, but you get a lot out of it, but it doesn't feel unbeatable to me. Like it's not like Cruel Ultimatum is a comparator. I know it's way more aggressively costed.
Yeah.
But that card is you can never beat it, it feels like. This card feels like you probably are still in the game if your opponent casts this against you. Maybe it's going to be a little bit of a slugfest, which would suck, but I don't know. It just feels like it's the right cost. 7 mana for all this awesomeness. I love this card. This card is really fun.
Yeah, so I don't have nothing to share.
Yeah,
Anything else,
it's a no. I mean, I'm just thinking best case. I don't know what is worst case scenario for this card. I guess you return a permanent to its hand, so you can bounce their fucking lands. You can deal 4 to face. You gain 4. You create the tokens. This card will literally never not get value.
If
it
it
will
resolves,
always be great.
It resolves, and let's say your opponent hexproofs their board. That's worst case scenario, right? They play their industry, all their everything they own is hexproof.
So then they nullify the bounce. They nullify damage if you're trying to kill 2 creatures or get rid of them. Then you would still get 2 monks, draw 2, gain 4. Not great for 7 mana, of course, but like still decent. And
so like that is the worst case scenario. And like, how often are you getting worst case scenario? And I say literally never. One person that will get that happen to them. But I think it's one of those things because each individual piece is like going down a unique avenue, like creatures, card advantage, life gain, life loss. It feels like it's trying to cover all the bases at once, that it'll progress you towards winning in some way. Like that, I find like it's going to be hard to find a scenario where this doesn't feel like if you have the mana open, like it'll feel bad to play. It's just, I don't know, because everything is are all such minor advantages in all those avenues. I feel like there's always a good 4 damage target, and you could always use 4 life and having 2 creatures and some more cards and slow your opponent in some way. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, there's almost never going to be a world where you can't play this. If they have an empty board and just lands, you can play this for 100% full value, and that's what makes it.
And what's even more insane is like if all they have is nothing and they're sitting and they then cast their 5 mana spell finally, and you're like, well, maybe next turn.
Bounce it, huge tempo swing, yeah.
It's almost better than countering in some ways, and yeah. Anywho, I love him. The revelation I had is that maybe Jeskai isn't so bad. And they didn't have to spend 7 mana to do that, but I appreciate that they
just had to show you a spoiler.
Yeah. Now, Carver, spoil me on this card that isn't Mox Jasper, because we already talked about it.
I would love to. So this next one is called Neriv, would you say, or Neriv? What would you say? How to say?
I think you said it right.
I thought it was Gary, but I could see the way you guys are saying it.
We're going to go with Neriv. Heart of the Storm. He is a 1 generic, then a red, white, and black mana, so 4 total CMC. Legendary creature, Spirit Dragon, flying 4/5. If a creature you control that entered this turn would deal damage, it deals twice that much damage instead. I think this card is really cool, very simple. Seems like the type of card that works obviously really well. We talked about this earlier. I think maybe Taylor made this point that with Mobilize, it actually works without saying do the Mobilize thing, which is cool. And then also, so it plays with that. And then obviously with haste creatures, with the Warstorm Surge effects in EDH, like that type of thing. Just absolutely, unless Warstorm actually deals the damage. I might be wrong about that, but I have to look it up and see if the Warstorm or the creature deals the damage. The point is that there are cards that do that type of stuff. And this card benefits from all of it. I think this card's really sweet, so I like this card. What do you guys think?
I'm obsessed with this thing.
You're right. The creature deals damage. Whenever a creature you control enters, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. Wow.
What I love about this card in particular, one is it's a 4 mana effect, so it's kind of aggressive in its costing. And I love how much when you talk about it, the more you realize it can do, and not the other way around. Sometimes you talk about a card and you realize, oh wait, it doesn't work. Oh, I guess that doesn't work. Or this one
is kind of like how we were when we talked about the 3 mana Narset. As we started talking more about it, it was like, oh, this is actually kind of way worse.
But this one's the opposite of like, at first, when I first read it, I was like, oh yeah, haste creatures, but I didn't think about it. Flametone Kavu is like cards that just ETB deal damage all of a sudden become ETB kill any target, and it just it always feels like someone's going to share an idea they have for this card, and you're like, holy shit, I never thought about it that way. And those cards, to me, even if they're not good, I think are awesome.
Wait a minute.
So
Inferno. Yeah, speaking on that, Taylor. So Inferno Titan. I didn't think about Flametongue Kavu.
Oh my god.
Inferno Titan could be. I choose to do 2. Wait, how could that work? Yeah, but whatever. I mean,
it would just deal 1/1/1, and then those would get doubled.
What if you chose? Oh, because it always deals it individually. Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter.
Well,
I guess it doesn't.
It's when the source of damage resolves, it gets doubled.
Right. So you
So
could do like 2 to something and then 1 to something else. But it's still gonna, which would be 4 and
No, it will always hit for 2 minimum.
yeah. Right.
the idea being that you would only have 3 points to distribute. Wouldn't get 6 to decide. It would have to be those 3 points, and then once they get assigned, then they get doubled. Because I know that can be.
Yeah,
like,
it's 6 damage split into groups of 2.
That's the way to think about it.
all
Yeah.
is.
But again, just all those. I did not think about Flame Tongue Kavu. For some reason, I thought about Warstorm Surge first. I don't know why. But yeah.
Look, it's more weird than I thought. Flame Tongue Kavu. That's very boomer of me. A card from Invasion that nobody plays. I always think is like, oh, dude, that's the standard.
But there's a lot of effects that are
Oh,
like that. A lot of that benefit from this. Yeah, this card's so cool. Damn.
Because the thing is, like, haste historically loses value the later the game goes, I feel like. And it also loses its value the turn after the haste creature's in play, right? Like, haste is only good for the turn it's played. It's no longer useful anymore. So, printing a card like this and giving that extra bit of explosiveness to make haste even more potent is really fun. Because haste can feel like a dead keyword a lot of the times. Especially, you know, if you can't attack, or like I said, if the creature comes in and then it attacks, but then the next turn, why do I have, it's basically a keywordless creature. It just makes it.
Sorry, I just
more
had a
fun and
brain
powerful.
of like, I didn't realize how good this goes with the multi-combat enchantment. Having 2 combats on the turn a card
Oh god,
enters.
yeah, sure. Play this and then
Those
the next,
play well
literally
together.
the next turn, you play the enchantment, and then it,
Yeah.
that's
I
crazy strong.
Didn't think about that. So that would turn all those double.
Wow.
So there's some fun stuff in there.
Yeah, that's really cool.
All right. This card makes me want to, like, this is, I would wanted
I will say the one thing, I wish Nariv himself had haste, but I understand an 8 power or 8 damage dealing flying haster at 4 is probably too strong. Like, could they have made him a 3/4 flying haste so that he can do his own ability and hit for 6? Could he have been a 3/5? I don't know. I just wish he
it
had
probably
haste.
feels like a thing. It's like they wanted, because that's exactly what I thought. But I think realistically, you'd want this to be able to survive any future combats and stuff. So making it a more sturdy, less explosive one, I think is probably a trade-off worth having to make it a better
I think
card.
so too.
Speaking of cards
next.
that I read and I just think are the coolest shit ever, man. Is this one me?
I think so.
Do I
Yeah.
get to read it? Oh man.
Well, you skipped around earlier, so I think I'm losing a card, but I don't really care. It's fine. I'm just bringing it up so that you know and the audience knows, but it's fine.
Oh, wow, Kyle for once in his life isn't picked first. Oh, boo-hoo. So, all right, permanation. Is that a perenniation?
Isn't it Parination?
Parination. A parination, brother. All right, 3 colorless, white, black, green, sorcery. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a hexproof counter and an indestructible counter.
Oh, yeah.
This thing is just so annoying. I love. It's like when I read return target permanent card, and that was and ends with a period. I was like, okay, oh boy, what's the second half of this thing? But hexproof and indestructible feels like, man, reanimation decks. I don't know if you can really play this card, but if you can, I don't want to be in that format. That sounds brutal.
Yeah, we've never seen a reanimate effect quite this potent before. Bringing something back and protecting it with 2 of the most powerful protective keywords, hexproof and indestructible. Really, really cool. It is 6 mana, so, like, compare this to reanimate. 1 mana, I lose life, but I get the creature back, versus 6 mana, but it's kind of protected. And then sometimes in reanimate decks, you want your shit to die again anyway, so you can reanimate it again. So there's a bit of wonkiness, but I think if you're just playing an Abzan, high value, big, powerful creatures kind of deck, this probably fits better into it, where you don't necessarily need the recursion as much. You just want to keep your powerful stuff in play and then make it even more powerful with the hexproof indestructible. Yeah, this card's cool. It also targets a permanent, so there's a world where you bring back a land, LOL, and make an indestructible hexproof land. Or a big enchantment or something, I don't know.
Yeah, bring back your Smothering Tithe, your Game Changer Smothering Tithe with an indestructible and hexproof counter on it.
That's right.
Yeah, this card's splashy. It's like this is like normally when I read Hexproof and Indestructible on anything, I hate it because those abilities are just so like uninteractable and I don't know, kind of like make mini sub games where you just can never deal with this thing and it's annoying. But I feel like in this, for 6 mana with all the additional pomp of needing 3 different colors and the fit with like the flavor text and it fitting in with the Abzan tribe, I just feel like all of that kind of coming together. I think this card's pretty cool. Like it feels like it's worth 6 mana to get something that is that sticky. Yeah, I think this card's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's pretty fair too, 6 mana, the thing has to be dead first or in your graveyard at the very least, and, having milled it first or whatever. And yeah, I don't know. I don't have much else to say. It's really cool and it feels fair. Like you said, I mean, Hexproof and Indestructible are historically obnoxious keywords, but I'm not sure I would be upset if somebody played this. I'd go, holy shit, like, wow. Yup, that is a big, huge
You're
spell.
committing
and
a lot,
really scary
so I won't
creature.
mess
That's
with this
cool.
card. All right, you earned it.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, it's cool.
So the art is really striking. I don't know what's going on, but it's like all the orange and greens and like it just what is happening?
It's hard to explain. Yeah. People will see it with my edit. I'll put it on the screen. But I looked up this artist just before we started, Eli Minaya, and she's like the new Seb McKinnon. She's done a lot of art that's really striking and cool, but she uses a lot of dark tones and kind of watercolor-esque looking things, kind of like Seb McKinnon did. She has, if you ever have time, look her up. She has really, really good art, and she's done a few cards in this set, and they're all really, really good. Her name is, what is it? Or his name, maybe. Eli Minaya, probably a him. I just saw Minaya and thought female for some reason, but the first name is Eli.
No,
anyways,
that's how we determine sex and gender is their last name.
Yes. All right, cool card. I'm going to go next, right? I think I'm next, or Carver?
You are.
You're
no,
next.
It's me, because you talked about Nerve. Okay, this next guy, also very cool card. He is 2 mana, 1 colorless, 1 black. He is a demon.
What's his name?
Rot Curse Rakshasa. He is a 2 mana 5/5 demon with trample and decayed. Decayed keyword being this creature can't block, and when it attacks, you sacrifice it at the end of combat. So, 5/5 trample for 2 is insane, but it's got the downside of not being able to block and only getting to attack once. But then it has renew, the new keyword for the Abzan tribe, the Sultai tribe. X, black, exile this card from your graveyard, put a decayed counter on each of X target creatures, activate only as a sorcery. This card is ridiculously wicked. I love it. And I'm actually going to shout out myself right here. Carver, you can even attest to this. I made a custom Magic card years ago that put decayed counters on all your opponent's creatures and made them attack the next turn. It's like a pseudo one-sided board wipe. You remember that card? So when I saw this effect, I was like, holy shit, this is actually pretty close to my idea. And it took them a long time to make it. But one of the coolest things about Decayed is when the creature attacks, you have to sacrifice it at end of combat. So naturally, I was like, oh, what if you use this offensively? Make your opponents attack so they have to sacrifice their shit, but like they have to attack you. So you have to deal with whatever they're attacking with. So it's still kind of a cool trade-off. Anyways, that's what this card does. You play this dude on turn 2, swing with it on turn 3 as a 5/5 trample, so they're likely just going to take 5 damage, right? Like, who's going to chump block with their 2/2 or something to take a little bit less? They're probably just going to eat the damage. This thing dies. Then later, as they've built up their board, they have to always be fearing this renew effect of like tapping out, I exile this from my graveyard, I decay all of your shit, now none of it can block, so I either get free attacks in because you can't block me, or if you attack back, you have to sacrifice it, so you get one more attack. Like, this card is really strong. Not to mention, if you just mill it directly into your graveyard, you just have a kind of an X pseudo board wipe in your graveyard, X being like the mana cost, you can just pay however much you want. This card is really, really, really strong and really cool. I love it.
I am so down for this philosophy of throwing in one card with a keyword that's not in the set, like Storm or
this
Decayed. That even if the card wasn't interesting, I'm so for them doing this. Of like this design, like is cool enough that like, and it fits in the renew part. Like it, I don't know. I think this ability is such a unique thing. I'm glad. I don't know if it's powerful. I just think it's cool. It sounds powerful, but I think it's...
Yeah, Kyle, it is crazy how I totally forgot about that custom card you made until seeing this here and how similar it ended up becoming on a card like this. Of course, this is maybe a bit different with the fact the card itself has decayed, the original creature and whatnot, but yeah, this card is so cool. Like you covered all the bases with talking about all the different ways it can be utilized and just a little different avenues, you know what I mean? Ways to play this card and the sequence of play for this card. This card is really sick. So yeah, this card will be a fun one for sure. So
I wonder how it fits in standard. Obviously, this goes in EDH. Any deck that cares about sacking things, the versatility of Renew on this is really strong.
To me, this is a pretty clear. You slot this into some aggro shell,
like Rakdos aggro. Yeah,
like you don't even need to think of it having the decayed keyword, and you could just splash black just for this. Not even like full on Rakdos. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, the thing with decayed making something not block is what makes this more interesting and gives it more life. Because you can, in an aggro deck, that's what you're scared of, is them playing a big efficient blocker that deals with your threats. So this just circumvents that.
And then it
really
also
cool,
is an interesting,
really clever
tool for then the aggro player to kind of punish people who just then put out blockers. You'd be like, all right, well now all four of those things can't block anymore, and I'm still gonna keep pressuring. And because in a lot of ways, aggro just needs to cross the finish line, even if it's by an inch. So, like, maybe just getting that one extra attacker through the one turn is all you... So this seems really powerful.
This gives aggro decks so much reach. Because that's where aggro decks struggle. Like, when you get to turn 5 or 6, and if you're falling behind, you're probably just dead. Or if like we're saying, they've been able to stabilize, you just lose. But this gives you the reach you need. It's like, oh, now we're on turn 6. This is in my graveyard. I'm going to make your best things not block, and now I can push my last bit of damage through. It's really good. Really cool. All right, go next,
what are we
Carver.
Down?
Read the next guy.
We're skipping Shiko, Smile at Death, and Stormsteel Scion, right? So we're all the way down to Tajin,
yes.
Right?
Yep.
Taigam?
Taigam.
Okay, yeah, Taigam's probably more right. So Taigam, Master Opportunist, is a 2 CMC 1 and 1 blue legendary creature, human monk. He has the what do you call these? They're not keywords. What do you call this?
Like
ability text name Flurry. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, copy it, then exile the spell you cast with 4 time counters on it. If it doesn't have suspend, it gains suspend. So basically copying the second spell you play each turn, and you get it 4 turns later, for 2 mana. So, I'm not sure exactly what I think about this card. It sounds really good, right? Like if you, just cause it's so cheap to do, you do have to wait quite a while to get the card. 4 seems like a lot, but, and you have to cast the card. I'm kind of evaluating this on the fly. So you already have to have cast it.
When you cast your second spell each turn,
copy it.
I see this.
You get an extra copy, so you're getting. I don't know, like you.
But it's 4 turns later. Value. It is really slow. Yeah, that's the thing. Is that like, if you think about the deck he'll go in, you're always going to be playing more than 2 spells a turn. He himself is a spell, so if you play him on turn 3, right, you just slap him down and then play a little 1-cost spell, or even if you like. Playing him on 2 and then Jataxian Probe for Phyrexian mana and cloning that is pretty cool. Outside of that little...
also, it is just a spell. It's not...
that is cool.
You can copy creatures.
Oh, you're right. It is creatures. Forgot about that.
And
the thing is, once you hit that turn 4 of the first suspend, you're going to be getting a card every single turn after that, right? So, like, turn 2, you play him. Turn 3, you play a spell, then your second spell, and you copy it and get suspend. Yes, now you have to wait until turn 7, but on turn 4, you're going to cast 2 more spells and clone one of them. Turn 5, you're going to cast 2 more spells and clone one of them. Turn 6, same thing. So now turn 7, that first spell will be suspended. The last time counter will be removed and it'll get played. Then turn 8, that next spell from turn 4 will get played. You know what I mean? So like that first delay is going to feel brutal, but you're going to have so many suspended spells stacked up that suddenly the latter half of the game, you're just going to get a flurry of spells coming in every single turn.
Also,
You
he
know what
doesn't
I
have
mean?
to stay in play for, like, once he's created the copy, it's too late. That spell's getting cast. You're getting the free
Right,
value
yeah.
no matter what. So even if you kill him, it doesn't stop the free. That's why I think he's good, is that he doesn't have to be in play. So that's why I think that the time counter is a little high, is because you can do it, get one free spell out of him. Like, I don't know, getting a copy of a spell for 2 mana and forcing an opponent to, commit a card to kill it, like, that seems pretty good. I just feel like this card's floor is high enough that, like, it's hard to not, I don't know, getting an extra spell of any kind for free, even if it's a couple turns later. I don't know. I feel like it's hard to imagine that not being good enough.
Yeah, you guys both make really good points. I think the more I think about this card, it is pretty solid, especially because it's only 2 mana. Like it's just like you're going to end up getting a lot of value for 2 mana from this card. It just is quite delayed. But I agree with you, Kyle. There's going to be this snowballing effect as you get to that 7, 8, 9 turn, where you just have this constant flurry of value that's going to feel really cool. So yeah. At first, I don't know if I actually read this card prior to just reading it. Like, I know the spoilers have been up, but I don't think I actually read this card yet, so I kind of had to digest it. So it's a...
I just can't believe they put a suspend card.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Here's another one. Yeah.
There's like 4 or 5 cards that are just like, oh yeah, it's we're bringing back a mechanic we had, and it's on a card with a keyword that we're introducing. Man, they went from never reusing keywords to like bringing back ones that they only on one card in the whole set.
And
I'm
actually,
all for it.
Taylor, the next card you're going to read is doing the same thing again.
Oh yeah, dude, I forgot about this too.
Yeah. So
Right.
I don't know if we're cutting Tygom short, but he's a cool, simple card. I like him. He is a bit slow, but I like that he's a 2-drop, so it lets you play him really quick and start building up this backlog of extra spells you're going to get on the second half of the game. It's just really cool. And the fact that he copies creatures, great.
Yeah, and artifacts and enchantments.
Yeah.
Planeswalkers. Not that that's good.
Yeah.
I'm just saying you could.
Well, I mean, you get to use the first one you played for 4 turns, and if the next one comes in, like, you use the first one, yeah, it can do cool stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I like him. He's a grizzly bear, but he's cool.
Okay. Any 2-mana 2/2 is a grizzly bear.
All right. Next up on our Spirit Dragon journey is Taval, Arbiter of Virtue. This is the Sultai one. 2 colorless, black, blue. It is a 6/6 for 5 with flying and life. Okay? But spells you cast have Delve. And then wherever you cast a spell, you lose a life equal to its mana value. Well, I don't know at all how to evaluate this guy, but those words sound really cool. That is a fun card. It seems like it's a little degenerate, but I don't know. It seems cool.
It for sure is. It is also the epitome of a card Carver hates. A 5-mana 6/6 flying lifelink. It doesn't need any other text. That will win the game so many times. You don't even need the rest of it. Like, it's just going to attack people 3-4 times and they're dead. Really, really strong. Losing life equal to mana value is pretty huge. But
it's not how much you cast. That's just what the card's actual value is. So even if you spent less than... Yeah, so that's why I think this doesn't feel like you can cheat too hard.
But he's gaining you 6 life every turn, so at the very least you're getting to play a huge spell at a massive discount. And the thing is, it's not the first spell you cast each turn has Delve, which would also be very fair. It's just all of your spells have Delve. So the way they balanced Delve, or tried to, it's kind of like Dredge in that they never got the balance right. It's really hard to get it right. The thing about Delve is, of course, your brain goes, oh, well, to make this fair, because you can pay for the cost with exiling cards from your graveyard, just make the cost more. Well, it's really easy to fill up your graveyard with a ton of shit. So stuff like Treasure Cruise, that's 8 mana, right? 7 colorless and 1 blue. It's almost always 1 blue to draw 3 cards. The 7 colorless was virtually pointless. That's how the problem with Hogak. They're like, oh, this will be really hard to cast. Nope, it's fucking not. Gurmag Angler, that's why it's a staple in Pauper, because it's so easy to get 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 cards in your graveyard really fast. So my long-winded point is, those cards they tried to balance them around having higher colorless costs, and they were still easy to cast. So imagine all the cards that have a low amount of colorless cost that will be even easier to cast. You know what I mean? Like, your 5-drop that's 4 colorless is now suddenly a 1-drop. Your 3-drop is a 1-drop or a 2-drop depending on the colors, you know, like, this pairs into Ugin, Eye of the fucking Storms.
So
the next
I
card.
do think that what makes the limiter interesting is that, like, when you cast your second or third spell each turn, no longer are able to, like, I just don't think you can do flurry of spells, like, play another delve card, I don't know, like, your 4 mana spell still deal 4 damage to you.
My god, I just realized too. This is not when you cast a spell. Okay, this card actually, I just had to rethink this. Whenever you cast a spell, you lose life equal to its mana value. That didn't really sink in until now. That's literally every spell you cast, whether you delve it or not. You're going to be taking damage.
Okay,
it's not like if you delved a spell, you take damage, which is kind of how it worked in my head. But no. Okay, this card might kill you. This card might kill you. It gives you the option
to. You still have to pay the 7 life for that Ugin, but maybe you don't have to spend all the mana on it as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's a bit tough.
So that's why I don't think this is actually a really good limiter, because it's like you can't get around one of those costs, and like it does have a way to give you some refund, but it's not going to cover everything, and it really punishes decks that are trying to cast a bunch of very expensive cards. It's great if you want to cast like maybe 3 or 4 3-drops on turn 3, you know what I mean? Like get a bunch of little cheap guys out a little faster.
I just don't see this guy ever losing, just by virtue of turning your life essentially into mana. It's almost always a win condition. You'll just pay, especially in EDH, like, if you get even 1 mana rock, right, this guy's coming down on turn 4, which means you're likely having not lost much life, if any at all. And then you just dump your hand full of artifacts and colorless cards and take 20 damage, but you've dumped your hand and now you are 5 turns ahead of everybody and you paid half your life for it, but like you're about to win.
And then
right, like
turn,
turn
you're fucked.
Well, sure. But yeah, that's always a possibility. But that would require them responding versus this card being so crazy proactive. Like, imagine the sequence where you go, you know, mana rock, Teval on turn 4, immediately pay 7 life for Ugin. Exile cards from your graveyard. I mean, I guess you would have had to mill the first couple turns.
Yeah, I think that the board state to be that scenario is like, you've already gone off and filled your graveyard enough where you can pitch 7 cards on turn 4, or I feel like with both of those things in effect, you might get a turn to speed up, but now you've also made it so that anyone can flick you over. You will just die to incidental stuff.
I don't know. I think
I
do think it's really strong, especially with things like Grisly Salvage being 2 mana to mill 5, and then it itself is a spell. So you've put 6 cards in your graveyard on turn 2. There's plenty of 1-drops like Stitcher Supplier that mill you when they enter. So you go like turn 1, any random mill effect, turn 2, another mill effect, turn 3, a mana rock or mana acceleration, turn 4, play this guy, and then cast any kind of, even if it's just another mana rock, right? Let's say you didn't get to mill that much. You just have 1 or 2 cards in your graveyard. Like, paying 2 life for an Arcane Signet on turn 4 to pair with your 6/6 flying lifelink. That's a scenario carver that you're going to hate, where this thing will just kill you. If this gets out any turn earlier than 5, it's going to be the biggest threat on board, bar none. And if you don't have a removal answer, like,
I don't know, but you're just describing every dragon that's ever been printed. You know what I mean? You're just describing a big...
I don't think so. This is a 6/6 flying lifelink for 5 that is leaning way heavily over.
But my point
the
being,
standard.
though, it is a higher than like the average. But what you're describing is not unique to this dragon, but most pushed 5 mana flying threats would pose similar levels of danger that I
It's
don't
arguable,
think
yeah.
this one is disproportionately stronger than other threats of like I don't think it's as uniquely powerful as you're describing.
know,
I agree with you, Taylor. I don't
I-
think this card as a dragon is uniquely powerful in like, you know, against even some of the other ones we see here. I think, and I don't know how to evaluate. I know Delve is really strong, but I believe
Yes.
that losing life equal to the mana value of every single spell you cast while this is in play,
Yeah, that's
I
brutal.
think that's bad,
Brutal.
and I don't know how bad. So, like I know Delve's great, and I know losing life equal to your mana value is bad, but I really don't know how close those two are in power level to properly evaluate this card. It's interesting. I'd be interested to see this in action, you know, as a commander or even in standard or whatever, and see, you know, how it actually plays out, you know, because I'm curious. But I don't know if I can really evaluate this card because I'm not sure how those things play against each other.
I think this guy as a Tron general is going to be the most powerful strategy. Because you're gonna you play him, you play mill stuff, and you play a bunch of equipment that's colorless that can be delved virtually for free. Yes, you're going to lose life, but then the equipment gives power and toughness to your flying lifelink general, which is, you know, very, very powerful combo of keywords. Anything on top of that is just going to be even more powerful. So, like, I can easily see this thing coming down a turn early with your mana rocks, and then you delve a bunch of equipment into a play for free, you equip it all for low cost, and you swing for 10 damage on turn 5, lifelinking, you know.
And then someone kills it. Like I just what you're describing is just like it feels like not a uniquely powerful thing. Like
I mean, okay, dying to removal is not an argument. I understand they can kill it. Anything can kill anything, but I'm saying the way you would play this card is pretty fucking powerful if you play it as a Tron general, where you're paying life for the equipment that's going to then give power back to the life linker that's going to gain you the life back that you lost. That's what I'm saying. That little cycle, that circle, is what will make this guy really strong. You know, playing a bunch of 10 mana spells and losing 30 life and then getting 6 of it back on attack, yeah, that's going to suck. But my mind is just thinking specifically Tron, where you can kind of dump out equipment that then brings the life back to you that you spent on it. That will be a particularly powerful synergy.
That could be good. I agree with that. It's an interesting card, though. It's
yeah, spells have delve, and then when you cast a spell, you lose life equal to its mana value. It's
cool.
Yeah, it's always funny talking about these things and being blown away by the first couple sentences and then rereading it and realizing how much worse it was than you thought. Yeah, I don't think you play this in a Spellslinger deck ever, because you'll just die.
It sounds like it almost feels like an attempt to fix delve. Would you guys like, you know what I mean? It almost feels like that's
yeah.
That's
what I think. What this is more than fixing delve is trying to push you to use delve differently, and I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh,
Instead
sure.
of trying to make a bunch of really expensive stuff cheap, maybe it is supposed to be kind of like making a certain type of card, like Kyle is saying, like building this to be a combat focused thing, and those types of cards, or, you know, playing a bunch of cheap stuff, dirt cheap instead, and using your mana instead of casting spells on activating things in play. That's what you use your mana for. You know, things like that is like, oh, that changes what you value delve about. I don't know. I think that was what I think is the coolest part, is by bringing in a unique downside, totally twists how you a keyword or view it. So I read this card, I'm like, I have no idea how you build a deck around this, but this is like the type of card I think people who are deck builders at heart love.
It did also make me think this is sort of channel on a stick, but in your command zone, and I think this thing will be probably, if it's a competitive viable card, it will certainly just be for combo decks, because you'll play this and get to cast a bunch of stuff for dirt cheap, and then you pay your 20 life, but you've won the game, because instead of, you know, you cast your 4 spells that were too expensive normally. You know, so like channel on a stick in your command zone is very strong.
Yeah, that's true.
Of course, you're delving. You're not just raw paying life for mana, but in effect you are. Especially in Sultai, you're gonna have no problem filling up your graveyard. I have a Hogak EDH deck, and I don't know that I've ever had issues filling up my graveyard.
Well,
you know, like it's super easy.
I want to ask for Hogak, what percentage of it is Delve and what percentage of it's Convoke?
That I'm casting Hogak?
Yeah, like how much is the Convoke relevant when you're talking about casting?
Always convoking 5.
So what you're saying is it's not exclusively Delve that makes him
Wait,
insane.
no, I'm sorry. I'm delving 5. I'm delving for its converted mana cost almost every single time, and then just tapping a couple creatures.
There's a 0% chance you're tapping 5 creatures to cast this.
No, my brain, I just said the wrong word. Yeah, I'm usually, you play 1 or 2 creatures that ETB and mill, and then you get rid of your graveyard and tap those creatures and play Hogak. That's usually the sequence. Like, so turn 1, mill creature, turn 2, mana dork or mill creature, and then delve 5, tap the 2 creatures, play Hogak on 2 or 3.
I do think that it's going to probably be designed for spells in the set that it's printed in. So I'm trying to think. Sultai with the graveyard has this is the flashback, but you can tap creatures, right? No, that's
Harmonized. That's Teamer. This is Renew. The creatures in your graveyard can be exiled for stuff.
It also is interesting. It's in the cycle that has cards that it wants to cast from the graveyard. So filling it up isn't necessarily, well, you want to empty it too. So it's
right. Yeah,
it'll be interesting.
No, this guy's a weird one. It almost this dragon almost is anti-synergistic with Renew, because you want Renew in the graveyard so that you can renew, not so that you can
pitch it to
just get rid of it. But you know, it is still revolving around mill, which Renew is good inherently. Like, you just delve all the non-Renew cards and then leave the Renew as extra value or whatever.
Yeah, so I and these are the cards that I think what make Magic the Gathering cool.
Yeah, they just make it.
There are a lot of cards that we see here that we can say is objective. Like, I know exactly what you do with it, and how good is that? This is something where you're like, well, everything I know about it works differently because this line of text I've never seen it like this. So it changes the entire formula. So you can't even imagine how it would work until you got to like math it out in real time. And that's the stuff that makes figuring out cards awesome. Cards like this, it's just like, I don't even know what you do with this now. This is unique.
Yeah, it's really cool. All right, well, let's clean this up because I imagine the last 2 cards we're also going to talk forever about. So, who's next?
I think it's...
Who read Tival?
Did you read Tival, Kyle? Who?
Was it me? I think I did. So that put this.
I think it's Kyle.
I read Rock Curse Rakshasa, then Carver read Tygum, then you read Tival. Oh yeah, okay, I'm Ugin. All right.
Get owned, idiot.
Okay. Very true. I am owned. Next card. This is the card of the set. Ugin, Eye of the Storms. They brought him back. He has 7 colorless mana. He's a planeswalker. He enters with 7 loyalty. He reads, when you cast this spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors. Then he has a static ability. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, exile up to 1 target permanent that's 1 or more colors. Then he has a +2 that says gain 3 life, draw a card. He has a 0 that adds triple colorless mana. Then he has -11. Search your library for any number of colorless non-land cards, exile them, then shuffle. Until end of turn, you may cast those cards without paying their mana costs.
There's nothing on this.
Pretty much dog shit.
Anger. This card makes me
terrible.
Angry. I'm so
Do not
mad.
play this card.
Fucking
it's
so
just bad.
Stupid. When I'm cast, so it doesn't matter if it's successful or not, you're getting at least a 1-for-1 or 2-for-1, because if they answer the spell version of it, they still got the counter and a permanent out of you. And then in the future, all colorless spells, even your 0-mana Mox fucking dick suck over here,
right,
are now removing things. You get to Black Lotus every turn. Fuck off. I don't care. I hate this thing so much. What does this solve that needs solving? What's unique and interesting about this? This is it kills all cards of death triggers, so it removes a huge chunk of play in the game where death doesn't matter. I hate everything about this card in such a visceral way. I feel like I'm Reddit.com right now. It's pissing me off.
It ruins Renew single-handedly, right? Exiling your shit, so you can't renew it. It's not dying.
And Harmonize.
Yeah, it exiles permanents. It's not just creatures or whatever.
Because it's
Yeah,
so
I mean,
like, oh,
he-
is this
he's-
card
he-
good? I can't tell. 7
he's just an
colorless
Eldrazi.
mana?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. If you go... well, that's what I was saying. Like, Teval, I would take 7 damage to play Ugin the same turn I play Teval. I mean, that's crazy, right? Turn 4 or turn 5,
Yeah, this
Ugin
dog
will be
shit.
disgusting. Yeah, I'll pay 7 life for that any day of the week. You cast Ugin, exile something. Like you said, even if they counter him, they are losing their counterspell and the thing that you exiled on casting Ugin. So you're guaranteed a 2-for-1 if they deal with this Ugin at the earliest possible moment, which is when you're casting him. You still get a 2-for-1. Then if they don't answer him, he comes into play, he has 7 fucking loyalty, or if you +2 him to gain life and get card advantage, now he's 9 loyalty, so he's going to be virtually impossible to... Well, I guess on turn 7, maybe they'll probably have a good enough board to swing, but you're going to have shit too. Yeah, like you're not killing a 9 toughness or a 9 loyalty planeswalker on the backswing. You're just not. So they're probably going to get 2 activations of Ugin minimum, which is either going to be cast Ugin, exile something, you 0 him for a couple extra mana, cast a mana rock that's colorless, triggering his other static ability to exile another thing. I mean, this is all to not even mention his ultimate that just lets you cast your entire colorless deck, whatever you want, for free, which will win the game. Guaranteed. If you don't win the game with that, you're not playing him right. But like, yeah, just his cast trigger, his static ability, and his +2 and 0 cost things. Game fucking over.
I hate that it's 1 or more colors. It's just like, I don't know, man. This is anti-fun to me because it doesn't... With any removal that is just... Like, why isn't the static effect that it'd say, like, if this spell is countered, exile something? You know, I don't know. There's just this idea of like...
I mean, it could just be, yeah, when Ugin enters the battlefield, do the thing.
No, that's worse, because then if you just flick...
Oh, because then... Well, that, or while that ability is on the stack, then you can cast something.
Because I was talking to Carver about this earlier. Yeah. How do you counter the effect? Let's say you counter the spell. You can't counter that effect, so you can't cleanly answer this. So it almost feels like, well, I guess I just won't answer it. There's only like a hyper-specific way that this is not insane. And it just drives me nuts how oppressive it is to be playing colored mana. And like, it's bad against itself. Cool. That's a great...
Right, in the mirror match, it's bad.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what about this in particular that just, it makes me so bummed out, but it just... This is like one of my least favorite
Just look at it as an Eldrazi. Just look at it as an Eldrazi. It's just an insanely powerful thing that is probably too cheap, honestly. It needs to be like 10 mana, but
Yeah,
7 does
mana
feel...
nothing. I feel like 7 mana is not that much.
And every Eldrazi is, if you cast this, you gain a turn.
They're the same thing.
And it's just, no, what I'm saying is like those effects are just like, one, they're either double the mana, or when they're cast, it's such a more interesting win effect than just like, oh, I'm just going to start slowly removing your cards. Like, one person, they get ahead, they destroy a bunch of things, or they exile half your deck. Like these are big, unique, powerful effects. This thing is just, I'm going to remove interesting things that you're playing with, your toys, one by one, until like your will to have fun in this game is gone. Whereas like when you see an Eldrazi, you're like, all right, you got me. All right, gain control of my next turn. Okay, you mind slavered me. Like,
yeah, I mean the literal cheapest Eldrazi was 7 mana, and it was a 7/7, and it had Annihilator 1. So like, it also was a common. It's not a mythic rare planeswalker, so unfair comparison. But you know,
only the ones that have cast triggers are the ones I'm talking.
Let's see. Yeah, that would be like Kozilek was
10.
Kozilek was 10, and he drew 4 cards on cast. Then he sat and play, and you could deal with him before he attacks you. You know, Ulamog was 11 mana.
Destroyed a permanent.
Emrakul was 15. Ulamog did destroy a permanent, but it was 11 mana. It wasn't an exile at 7 mana. Yeah, I mean, 7 mana is just way too cheap for what this guy does. This is going to be a $100 planeswalker for many years, guaranteed.
Yeah, what is it? The Infinite Gyre was the original printing. Yep, 1 permanent, and that's the only thing. He destroyed 1 permanent.
And it
And,
was
like, that's what I'm
11
saying.
fucking mana.
If all of the things it said was destroy, I would feel significantly less mad because
And
I
they
cannot-
don't do anything once they enter play. I mean, obviously they do something, but they sit there as just big
They're
dummies that are
creatures,
vulnerable.
yeah.
This
15
guy, you cast him and get a thing, and then as soon as he hits play, you get another effect that potentially snowballs you into another thing. Like, he just goes and goes and goes. Sorry to
I'm not
interrupt.
talking. I hate his dog shit ass.
He's way too strong. He needed to be 8 mana at minimum.
8 mana, or one thing I thought was it seemed
Each individual line of this motherfucking piece of shit card should have been edited at least a little bit. There's no
Right.
line of text on it here that I'm not mad about. I'm surprised he's not a non-legendary. Fucking dumbass.
Yeah, just go ahead and play a
Piece of
bunch.
shit.
What were you gonna say, Carver?
No,
What were
I
you gonna say?
thought Taylor and I, like he mentioned, we were talking before this, and the thought I had was I wondered if a way to maybe that would feel corrected is if he just didn't exile something when he was cast. So
Yeah, sure. Just had the static
yeah,
ability.
you still have the static and all the others,
it's-
and then maybe
it's-
it's like, because I really feel like that for some reason to me that really puts it over the top, especially when you consider like chaining Ugins. Like if I cast one Ugin,
Or
I get
make
to
it-
exile one thing. Cool. And maybe my next colorless spell is another Ugin. Okay, so I trigger my existing Ugin and I trigger the new Ugin. Like it's just
Yeah.
it's so
That's
so
true.
stupid. Like it's just
They should have like Planeswalker summoning sickness on this.
yeah.
Where he can't activate an ability the turn he comes into play.
That's
Or
an
get rid
interesting
of
thought,
all
yeah.
of his
I don't
activated
think-
abilities.
They've never
Get rid of all of his activated abilities and just have the
Sure.
2 statics, and then that's
Make him a
then that's
static
his,
one.
And then he's an artifact. Which, honestly, I wish he was. So I could fucking...
Yeah, I mean, obviously he isn't printed yet. We don't know, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's going to be stupidly strong. The format is going to revolve around him like the Ugin before him. He was everywhere and was the best deck. He's still in fucking Modern or was he banned in Modern?
I think in Modern, I don't know if I...
In Tron decks. Anyways, he's going to be dumb strong.
This one
and he's
obviously
gonna,
fits in with After Modern Horizons 3. It was like it was made with that
yeah.
deck. in
Without
mind.
looking, what do you think his pre-order price is?
At least...
I know it's It's got to be $100, right? 90 something.
It is $84 on TCG.
Okay, yeah.
Which is still crazy.
Yeah. And usually those are inflated, but a lot of times not a lot of times, sometimes the cards are even better, and I think this guy's going to be one. You might even be getting a bargain if you pre-order him at $84. I'm not kidding. He's probably not Jace the Mind Sculptor level, where he gets up to $250, $400, whatever it was, but all right, whatever. Ugin is dumb strong.
Yep.
Moving on.
All
Who's
right, we'll
next?
close her out.
Carver?
With Ureni. I'm going to say Ureni. The Song Unending. It is a 8 total CMC, 5 generic, 1 green, 1 blue, 1 red, legendary creature Spirit Dragon, flying, protection from white and from black. When Ureni enters, it deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers your opponents control, where X is the number of lands you control. And also Ureni is a 10/10. So 8 total CMC, 10/10. This thing is massive. This feels like if you're doing the big land thing, like if you're doing the big get a bunch of lands into play teamer thing, this feels like a pretty reasonable payoff for it, right? You're paying 8 mana. You're probably going to be either board wiping your opponent or being pretty close. And you get a 10/10 flyer for your trouble. I mean, it feels like the right amount of power level for 8 mana. It feels thematic with what the rest of the teamer tribe is doing. So I think Ureni is a cool card. And I don't know. That's my take on it. So what do you guys think?
I think protection from white and from black are also the 2 most relevant protection colors. That's where the most removal is in EDH anyway,
Mhm.
I think.
Red
there's
removal's
green.
not going to do very well against the 10/10.
Right, no. And like green has Beast Within, but that's pretty much the one creature kill spell green has. Fight effects are going to, dissolve in your hand when they play this guy. There's going to be no point. Blue has stuff like Pondrify, but Yeah, I don't know. Pro white and black on a 10-10 flyer, he's going to be unkillable in a lot of matchups. And then, yeah, like turn 6, play the Broken Back Mountain Dragon Back Mountain. You play that on turn 6, then on turn 7, do some landfall shenanigans, maybe play a fetch land, play a bonus land from something. And then I don't know, yeah, I guess he's probably coming down on turn
6
or 7 or 8 most of the time. 6, you're ramping in Teamer. You're probably playing Dragonback Assault earlier than 6. You're probably playing it turn 4 or 5. Then you play Ureni on 6 or 7. Yeah, I mean he's simple, but he's real strong, huge, fun. Other comment I have is I fucking hate the names of all of these dragons and that they are so easily mispronounced or like they're not clean phonetically. You could pronounce any of these dragons in about 3 different ways, and I really don't like that. Betor, Nariv, Tevel, Tival, Ureni, Urenai, like what the fuck are these names?
It gives me like generic fantasy name generator.
They're awful.
I don't know why. I didn't think about it, but you saying that is crystallizing a little.
Shiko is the only one that's fine. Shiko, that's the Jeskai one we did in our last podcast. Shiko there's probably no way to mispronounce. It probably could be Shiko. I don't fucking know. Shiko Sicko.
Look, we called him Garuk for 20 years.
Yeah, true. So yeah, anyways, I despise the names of these dragons. Like Taylor said, they're very generic fantasy name. They don't evoke anything. I'm not going to remember any of them. But other than that, yeah, I love seeing the 10-10 power toughness. That's hilarious. I love seeing that. This guy feels fair.
I love that it says based on how many lands you control, because that, to me, I like the reward being not temporary mana, but permanent mana. And like thematically, that makes more sense for dragons and like for Teamer in particular. That's the only other thing I would add. Is I like that it calls out lands.
Yeah, not like the amount of mana you spent on him, you mean?
Or just like in some ways it cares about land count, you know. A lot of these cards that are very big mana don't care how you cast him. This one does. It's like, no, you didn't just cast me. What lands do you have in play? And it even pays you off for extra mana you have. So like when you have 28 lands in this top deck,
he's going to be crazy.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, like if you cheat cast him into play, it will matter when you do that. If you cheat him, well, I don't know. If you cheat him into play really early, you have a motherfucking 10-10 flyer in play, so you're winning that way.
Yeah, so like
he is balanced in that way, where like, yeah, you'll get less damage early, but he is an insane threat, and then late game he scales and board wipes more efficiently. But you know, on turn 8, 9, and 10, a 10-10 flyer might not actually be the biggest threat on board anymore. So he does have that cool kind of balancing act there.
I hope pro white and pro black isn't too
it's
annoying.
Funny that
I hope that's not like.
Oh, it will be. No, that's miserable.
Oh, it's gonna be shit. Yep.
I mean, you could always just do, Wrath of God, still get it. So like, it's at least board wipeable. But
and white black tends to have the most flyers too. Now that I think about it, blue, of course. Sorry, blue has the most flyers, but white black are, I think, next in line. Green's got the big dumb creatures on the ground. Red has the small hasty dudes and token stuff. Like, obviously, there's a lot of dragons. Sorry, I keep talking the exact same time you're trying to respond. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Keep hearing yourself talk. I know it's important. That is objectively true. That white is the main in flying. Which is the second most.
Yeah.
I didn't think about the blocking being harder too. I always think of just removal spells, but yeah, you have to throw in some Sphinxes are going to have to play some defense.
Yeah, like I thought Teysa would be able to respond to flyers with my 1/1 flying white token spirits. Nope. This thing swings right through everything. This guy's cool. He plays with flicker, even though there's not that many flicker effects in these colors. I like that he only hits creatures and planeswalkers, so you can't just play him and nuke your opponent since he himself is already kind of a nuke. It would be lame to slam him on turn 13 and, hit them in the face for 1 million, then swing for 10 the next turn. I'm glad they realize that's probably a bit too strong. He's kind of just the expanded version of Dragonback Assault, really. Instead of dealing 3 to everything, he's going to deal, 8, 9, 10, 12 mana, 12 damage split however you want, so you're going to be able to really efficiently pick apart their board. Then he himself is a 10/10 flyer with protection instead of having little 4/4 dinkers. He's cool.
Well, you know what's cool? This
The
set.
end.
That is the end of
Mythic rares.
I don't know how long we're recording. 5 or 6
Yeah, feels
a
like
little
it.
over 2. Okay.
Yeah, a little
What
over 2.
were-
Not too bad,
said-
truthfully.
Did you say you had, for one, the land cycle really shocked me. I don't really want to talk about the lands in particular, but they did not add multicolor. They had the tapped, fucking clan lands. That doesn't count. The rare cycle is just some weird utility lands.
Yeah, true.
It is,
That's a good
yeah.
point. I didn't think about the lands in this set.
The land cycle
Kinda
was The blue one seems insane, but other than that, they all seem fine to bad. But yeah, so I was surprised with the land cycle in this what looks to be very mana hungry set. There's a lot of gold cards here.
Yeah, they brought back some hybrid mana too. I actually think the fixing might be because it has evolving wilds in the set too, which is something that wasn't in the original cons.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if that means the fixing's better or worse. The monuments are uncommon. I don't know. So it's a little different, but yeah, you're right, Taylor. There's a lot of multicolor cards, and so I'm sure the limited limited environments can be pretty rough with people picking.
I didn't mention it, but every card that we talked about is good in limited.
Oh yeah,
true.
Shiko,
Well
great
said.
and limited. Dragonback Assault, great and limited.
Yeah. It's going to be a limited bomb, to be quite frankly honest.
Sorry, shout out to the.
Yeah.
It's like saying when you have nothing nice to say about the card, you just say, "I like the art," or it'll be a bomb in limited.
Yeah.
Craterhoof Behemoth, man. It's going to be a bomb in limited, dude.
Whoa, I'm going to open that in limited and going to crush my opponents to death with Craterhoof Behemoth in my limited environment.
So the last thing I think we could talk about are the mechanics that didn't end up showing up in Mythic. So Omen as a replacement for Adventures. I love this as the problem with Magic is they come back to mechanics and usually fix them. And I think they're better the second time around, but they've already gave everyone their first hit for free of what it could really be like, and being introduced to the dice version of that mechanic, I think a lot of people then just be like, well, I can't help but compare it to this version and the other version's better. I think Omen's a cool, you get a spell or a creature, and if you cast a spell, it goes back in your deck and it comes back later. I think that's cool. But it's an objectively worse version than Adventures. In no way is it better.
No, it's way, way, way worse, and I hate that they use the same kind of
Template.
card, template for it. For those of you listening, Adventure is the one where there's this tiny mini card on the bottom left of the card, and you can cast the Adventure as a spell first into the Exile zone. Then from Exile, you can cast the creature part of the spell, because each spell is a little spell and a creature combined into one. So you put it on an Adventure, and then you put the creature into play. It's always just a 2-for-1. You get a decent spell that goes into Exile, and then from Exile, you play the creature later. You just get 2 things from it. It's really, really good. This, now they brought it back, it's called Omen. It's formatted exactly the same, so I actually thought it was Adventure again. But instead of casting the little Adventure spell part and going into Exile, it actually gets shuffled into your deck. So you have to choose right then and there. Play the creature or play the spell, because shuffling it back into your deck, good luck drawing it again. It's basically gone. So it is the quote-unquote balanced version of Adventure, but it's almost so different I wouldn't even call it that. It's just templated the same. But shuffling the card into your deck, you're just never getting it again. So it should have just been a split card, really.
I think they intentionally did not want it to go to the graveyard. It's not so much about what's balanced. I think it makes it worse than if it was a split card. Right? Because being in the graveyard is objectively
it is
better.
worse.
So I think in a set that cares about the graveyard, I think that's an intentional, let's not give it even more power. It's a way they...
It's just weird. Why did they even do it? Why is this even in the set? It feels weird.
I don't necessarily. I think they just had they like the idea of splitting cards into two pieces, and they tried something new. I don't know why they format. I think they just didn't have a lot of ways to format it right. I think if it looked differently, you would not have any negative feelings on, or the same negative feelings. Because I think it makes sense that it's on these dragons, and they kind of a lot of dragons bring, or at least thematically, like I understand what they're trying to do. Like a lot of times they have these other presence effects of their presence being around and, portending to the danger to come.
Right, yeah. Well, so that's Omen. We briefly talked about Endure.
Carver.
It's just a...
What do you think of Omen? That was just Kyle and I's thoughts. I didn't get to hear what you thought.
I would say
As in
I'm a big adventure guy, so I didn't really have the issues with adventure that apparently I would say the way this is templated and the way that it looks. I mean, it clearly seems that they felt adventure also was a problem. Wizards meaning that. What I mean by that, I don't know. It definitely is less powerful, and I would say you could say it's a fixed version of it if the consensus is that adventure is OP. This is definitely a potential fixed one. So
Carver,
I
love the concept that you're like, people think adventure's overpowered. I guess if that's what people are thinking, it's okay that your favorite thing is busted. You like things that are powerful, and they say hell yeah. But to be surprised that you think like, well, I guess if that's what majority think, Carver.
I think he means us mostly.
I don't know what the general consensus is. I never knew there was. I don't know if there's a general consensus on adventure. Really, honestly, I felt like I just know what I knew from playing it. So it just feels like the way this is templated that it feels like that they are maybe trying to correct it with Omen the way it works. But I don't know that it needed correcting. But hey, whatever. They maybe people did, or maybe they did. So it's fine. I mean, all these abilities are cards I would play, right? Like even like in a limited environment. I don't know from a competitive environment if these are really where if we're gonna see many of these played in standard. Just because, like Kyle said, you lose it goes into your deck if you play the Omen half and it's kind of gone. So I don't know. It's probably not going to show.
It's definitely a limited.
It's not going to show up in standard like Adventure did. Definitely not. So
no, I'm pretty sure it's unplayable. Truthfully, I think Omen is
the only Omen that is borderline playable is the one that is a scaling wrath, the double black X. Each non-dragon gets -X.
The Regent, and you're a 4/4 on the other half. Yeah. So yeah. Okay, I could see that one being good. I mean.
But like at the same time, though, I bet you there's a better card that has that ability like that somewhere. It does feel like sometimes the design mechanics that are like, this is not standard playable; it's limited. I feel like in a 40 card deck, Omen makes more sense too. So I feel like it is an intentional mechanic, not just in the meme way of like, I have nothing nice to say. It's like I think they truly were designed not in 60 card as like where their power was.
Yeah, and I think it's fine. I'm not mad about it or anything like that. You know what I mean? It's just like it's fine.
What I like about it is they still are coming up with ways I haven't thought of ways to split a card in two. Whether it's going from your hand and then they have to cast the half in the graveyard, or you have to make the choice right away, or entwining, or transforming, and like, I don't know, they just keep coming up with ways to somehow get you to use one card for two different modes in ways that I hadn't seen yet. And it's just, I'm always interested to see how it comes. That's why I like it. Not that for any power.
Right.
And they also had sagas, which I kind of don't care about sagas.
Yeah, they're like they're like in every set now, right? They're just like a good card type. They're fine.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. So like, maybe I shouldn't be thinking of them as a returning thing as much as like maybe sagas are just in every set now, and I didn't.
Yeah, they're kind of just they're an evergreen enchantment kind of mechanic they bring back because they just fit in everything. The word saga, it just if you're if you're telling an epic tale, the saga of a thing, it just works. If there's any kind of lore involved, yeah, it just always works. So I think sagas will come up pretty much everywhere.
Cool. All right.
They're a little boring. I feel like when they first came out, they were doing more interesting things, but now it's just, do a good effect that synergizes with the next effect, and then that's it. They're kind of just planeswalkers.
I mean,
I don't know.
Joke, but I'm sure you know that story. That is the original prototype.
Yeah,
of
they were. Yeah, you do step 1, then step 2,
sagas.
then step 3. Yeah.
So I will say, I think after that's why I kind of like. I know we haven't talked about the Final Fantasy set, and I don't know if you ever want to, but what they did with sagas, making them also creatures, is really cool. It's kind of like that's something new with sagas that I think is.
Yeah, that'll have to be. That's the evolution I'm looking for, because sagas have kind of worn out their welcome for me. The 3-step, do a couple things. It's just a good spell that's elongated over 3 turns instead of just being good at the.
So then it becomes a thing that you have to just find the individual designs that are interesting because it's just a mechanic now. It's kind of like the idea of like seeing an enchantment doesn't mean anything to you anymore, but a good enchantment will catch your eye type of thing. But it's still new enough that it feels like it's a special thing.
Yeah.
That's how
I find that sagas typically now are kind of, and we're getting off topic here about sagas, but sagas now for me are a lot of times you're just delayed getting the effect you want. So a lot of times they're just not what I'm looking for. If I'm like building a commander deck or whatever, like it's because I'm not going to wait around for like Eldest Reborn. I'm not going to wait like 3 turns to reanimate a creature. It's not going to happen. It's I'd rather just play the reanimation sorcery or whatever. So I feel like that's like a pretty, let's say, easy example of saying, of course, the Elden Reborn isn't really a EDH playable card. But my point is that like that's what I think a lot of sagas are, is that they're not like a build up to like a grand effect or whatever that is worth it to have them in your deck. A lot of times you'd rather just play a more efficient way to do the thing. But I don't know. So I'm not super high on sagas. I like. Wow. I like seeing them. I like seeing them again. This is the limited thing because I think they are interesting in a way. In a lot of ways, they play out. But like if I'm building a deck, especially if I'm building an EDH deck, I'm not like I almost never am turning towards a saga. It's unlikely.
So this is where I fall on the thing of like what you guys are saying is true, but I think what I like about it is that they are unique in their timings, and it makes them more. What I find boring in Magic is once you have optimized your deck to just be reactive, and I think sagas prevent you from being in that position because the effects are delayed, and you don't know what the board will look like in 2 turns, so that makes them more interesting and less predictable, but that might be the exact reason you guys don't like them. But that makes me think, like, sometimes they end up being better than I think, but also they can be worse, and sometimes it makes me understand the rules a bit differently of like the order that they're being done in kind of matters. And I find them more interesting cards because they are delayed and slow. And I kind of like the game where sagas are good are the types of Magic environments I enjoy playing games in.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like that because it's kind of this is why I would say like in limited, I think sagas like Eldest Reborn and Dominaria Limited is a good card. Like that's a cool card. It's timed, it's staged, it feels thematic. It's just once you get to a constructed format where you have, and again, EDH is a example where you have so much access to everything that just there's too many options maybe. But it's just like that's where their power level is just so capped because it's so timed because it works against it in that way. But that's
Kaldheim is to me the sagas. Step 1 was the effect you wanted, then 2 and 3 were just like kicker with suspend. Is kind of like what I think what you want sagas to be instead of a 2-turn bad stuff. Turn 3 was the spell I wanted, but now I don't want that spell anymore. So they kind of have to be like front loaded, which makes them feel less or like less unique because they're just like, oh, it's a spell with some additional effects over time.
It's funny you mentioned that because they did 1 saga per clan in this new set, and I have them open on my screen. They are all heavily front loaded. Like the turn 3 one is almost always kind of the weaker looking one. Granted, they're all still pretty strong, but
like the Temur one is like a snowball effect. Is like you want the 2 5/5s, and if they're still alive, we got lethal.
Right,
know?
yeah, you have two 10/10s. Yeah, it's really cool. And like the Sultai one, just destroy target non-land permanent. You know, a 3-mana ETB sorcery speed, destroy target non-land permanent. It's really strong. But then the other two effects, mill 3, then you may discard a card to return something to your hand. Like, really slow and kind of lame.
Yeah, it's interesting. You guys have I have such a different relationship with like seeing them. Just kind of makes me excited. Like I they're usually not very interesting, but I just like them more than if I see an enchantment or an enchantment saga, I'm like, ooh, the saga might be cooler. So
Yeah, I had never thought about sagas too much, and I guess I never articulated it, but I'm in the camp of not really caring about sagas, not being too excited, and it is usually a problem with the cohesion of the card. Like, a lot of the cards we read today, you know, top to bottom, line after line, the text is really cool, and it makes you go like, oh, whoa, cool. Sagas can have the complete opposite effect, like the Sultai one I just described. You read number 1, destroy target non-land permanent. Whoa, that's cool. Okay, what's number 2? Mill 3 cards. What? That's what I mill 3? It's not 5? Or mill 3 and then return a thing? No, just mill 3. Okay, lame. All right, what's the third one? It must be better, right? You may discard a card. When you do, return target creature or land from your graveyard to play your hand. It's like, what? Okay. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, but that was a 3-mana 3 for 1. You know what I mean? Like, I
kind
hear
of. You had to discard a card to get one back. So it's you played this to kill something, then discard to return. It's actually kind of neutral.
I take it back.
And then the Jeskai one, right? The first 2 sagas are the same. It enters, and on number 2, you look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand, the rest onto your bottom. Like, okay, that's decent card advantage. 2 turns in a row, you're digging 6 deep into your deck and getting 2 cards for 3 mana. Pretty solid. The last one, when you cast a non-creature spell this turn, target creature you control gains double strike. So it's like, the first 2 parts feel really disconnected. So like, if you're picking,
what I hear is you are digging for 2 spells specifically to help you get a bunch of triggers on stage 3. So they all like those flow to me. They are pointing towards one exact type of story, like digging for spells that will give these heroic creatures double strike to fight in battle. Like that seems to be.
Yeah, but like this is a 3-drop, so I guess you're hoping you've played creatures on turn 1 and 2. Turn 3, you play this to get a spell. Turn 4, maybe you play another creature, get another spell. Turn 5, then you dump the cards that you got to give your turns 1 and 2 and 4 drops double strike. Like, yeah, I could see that.
Whether it's
and they're
good
all
or not,
prowessing as well. Like,
I would say, like I'm not speaking on its power levels. I just think a lot of them do tell you a good here's a little mini quest, a little side quest we're going to let you go on. And you can complete that side quest or not, but you still get to dig a little deeper. And maybe the stage 3, you just it's not connected to the first 2 steps. But I think they do a decent job of trying to push you to complete a little mini game within your larger Magic Gathering battle.
Sure, yeah, that's a fun way to look at it, yeah.
And that's that's why I kind of have a little crush on them, because they kind of tell a fun little story or a little kind of cohesive multi-step plan, and I just think that's kind of cool. And some are more successful than others, and I think it happens when you have lots of them back to back.
That's a good point. So if you had a hand with a saga in it, it would probably change your play pattern, because you would want to be working around this saga that's giving you value, hopefully enough value to actually play it. I don't know if these sagas will see play, but
I doubt
probably too early to tell.
Yeah, and I don't know what decks are going to be good, let alone that might want these sagas. But in the formats, that's what I like about them and why I get interested in them, because I'm like, what types of stories or game plans are they going to try to push players to do or try to set up? And I think sometimes you can find really cool many I wish I could find better words than the ones I do, but I think I've at least convinced you a little bit of what I see the value in them and why they're more interesting to me than just. I will say though, the Sultai one you described doesn't do a good job of it seems like it just generically make graveyards larger on both players' side,
and then you get a filtering effect of like picking your favorite out of there. But that's not necessarily like a unique gameplay strategy that the saga is helping you create. That's just like 3 cards stapled in order. And I think those saga designs are not great. But that the Jeskai one, on the other hand, I think is interesting because that is very unused. Like, you wouldn't play that way normally without this saga. It's helping tell this very specific battle strategy.
Yeah, it might encourage you to try to play creatures sooner, or maybe you actually play this later, not on turn 3. You work on getting your creatures first, and then you dig for the spells to do the big explosive turn. You also consider that these creatures have prowess, so giving them double strike is actually like quadruple strike, because your spells scale their damage, and then that damage is doubled from double strike, so like that can be very, very strong.
I've convinced you at least of some of their merits, and I'll take that as a win.
Yeah, it's cool.
All right, so that was the bonus podcast at the end of the Tarkir one.
Talking about little
Why
sagas
are actually kind of cool. All right, I think 2.5 hours. That's actually impressive for us. We did decent towards the end there.
Let's do it.
Well, I'd like to thank Carver. Thanks for coming on with me and Kyle to talk about more Magic the Gathering.
Anytime.
Nonsense.
Thank you, guys.
I don't know what we'll be back with next time, but it will be certainly stupid.
Nice, well said.
So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye.
Yep, see ya.
Bop, bop, bop.